Hey guys, welcome to the Pop Culture Galaxy podcast. I'm Mark Bridge, and I'm here with Zach Worsner.
That's me.
And we are here to talk about the game that took 25 years. No, I'm just kidding. I think, 15?
Something like that.
So
I mean,
15 years to make?
no, I think it's almost 20
Yeah.
because I mean, the very first time that this game was ever a twinkle
Mm-hmm.
was back in the PS2 era.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before the failure of Final Fantasy The Spirits Within,
Right.
they were like, we're going to do Final Fantasies 1 through 6 on Game Boy Advance,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to do Final Fantasies 7 through 9 on PS2,
Mm.
just to make everything up to the standard of Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
And then Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within lost like $100 million,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Well, that's not gonna work." If it wasn't for Final Fantasy X being such a huge hit and Kingdom Hearts being such an unexpectedly huge hit,
Mm-hmm.
Square Enix would probably be like THQ Nordic right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Um, but to be super realistic, the development really started in 2015. The announcement of the game happened in 2015. And I think it was around a year before that. Yoshinori Katase, and Tetsuya Nomura, they had a conversation. Well, we're getting up there in age, and if we were really going to remake this thing, I think we should pretty much start now. And they got around to doing it, and one of the things they always said, which we'll get into definitely in spoilers. By the way, it's a spoiler cast, so we're gonna talk spoilers from the beginning.
I'm gonna spoil the hell out of this thing.
But one of the things that they did say, if to entice them to come back, is that they would want to do things differently, and boy, did they do things differently. um, but so there's been a bunch of spoiler casts that I've been, watching them. People talking about theory videos and what they thought of the ending. There's a lot of people were conflicted, a lot of people hated it, a lot of people loved it. Um, but one of the things that I guess luck was on our side doing this podcast. I don't know if you know that the what do they call it? Ultimania?
The Ultimania?
Yeah.
You mean? Oh, well,
Yeah,
continue, because I just wrote a story about that on Screen Rant.
yeah, it came out today in Japan, that is. So they haven't fully translated it officially, but of course, people have translated key elements to it. So we have certain things going for us during this conversation where we don't necessarily have to speculate, even though we still can, because there's Tetsuya Nomura is saying one thing and Yoshinori Katase is saying another, which is
And also for me, with those kinds of books, those kinds of Word of God, those kind of, oh, it's not in the game, but I say dot 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 dot.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't care. I don't care what you have to say. If it's not in the game, it didn't happen.
yeah, yeah. So.
And especially with Tetsuya Nomura saying like, oh, now the compilation didn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
but then like there are references to lots of compilation stuff in Seven. It's like going back to Star Wars and Star Trek. It's
Mm-hmm.
like only the source material matters.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you want, the way I see it with the compilation, and really with anything that's like of lesser canon,
Right.
like even going all the way down to the lowest form of canon, whatever that is, I don't know, trading cards,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um, like that's all still canon until something contradicts it. Then the newer thing wins.
Yeah.
That's always the way that I look at it.
I mean, uh, just to sort of like put a little small defense for Tetsuya Nomura, I think what he really was saying when in terms of like the compilation, going by what the game did, he's saying really, yes, they can bring in elements from the compilation, but it doesn't really match up. If you were to go, okay, if you were to replace Final Fantasy VII with this game and put this in the middle, put this in between Crisis Core and Advent Children, this game would match up with either of them because of
Yeah.
what really happened. So I think that's where he was really coming from in terms of like it not being canon, but he still, because it's still one big universe. I think they felt free to sort of pull in elements from each of the compilations when they see fit. I think they brought in elements from Dirge of Cerberus with I think the Shinra lab underground, deep
There's
ground.
a well. I'm glad you mentioned that because they mentioned like, oh, there's an underground lab
Oh, you do sound like a robot
underneath
now.
Sector Seven,
Oh, you
and
sound like a
I'm good now.
yeah. You
All
for
right.
a second you were sounding like a robot. Okay, go. What are you saying?
And I thought that they were gonna that was a nod to Deep Ground from
Mm-hmm.
Dirge of Cerberus,
Right.
but then you actually go into the lab and it's like, oh, it's not Deep Ground, or if it is, it's like just a different corner of that.
Right.
And I think it's supposed to be like a completely different thing. But there is a reference to that they say, oh, and we're gonna need to breed Aerith.
Yeah.
Hojo says that, which is super gross. Even like President Shinra is like, oh, dude, stop. No. He's like, well, we're gonna need soldier candidates with S and G cells.
Right.
S being Sephiroth and G being
Genesis.
From the highly divisive character who
who could possibly show up in future installments. I think. Well, I mean, okay, I'm getting conflicted reports. Is it that they can't do Genesis again because of what's his name, Gact?
I mean, I don't see why they couldn't just redesign him. They redesign everybody to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And they could just be like, oh, well, your face looks like that now, but deal with it.
Yeah. You do start. You kind of sound like a robot now. I don't know if there's anything you can do. I should put this on vibrate. Talk again. Talk. Can you hear me?
I gotta change my. It's not like Zoom.
Oh. Just stick with us, folks. We're live. We're doing it live, guys. So, but don't worry.
Am I back?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're good right now.
When it's not like on Zoom when I unplug. I can just plug it back in, but here, when I unplug it, I have to also change my settings.
Yeah, I think maybe the next time we do this, I'll get Zoom because my son, he's home, so he has to use Zoom for online classes, and a lot of people I notice, even on podcasts and other stuff, are using Zoom. So I guess I'll bite the bullet and use Zoom. Like for you, is Zoom easier than Skype or?
Zoom is easier than Skype,
and it's a lot more
especially right now until I get my fix my internet and B find my USB hub wherever it is.
Yeah. So
we can split the cost. I'll go halvesies with you
for the internet.
Well, no, for Zoom.
For Zoom,
you can pay to have unlimited time.
Oh, so it's like there's time. Is it time?
Yeah, it's something like 45 minutes but you can restart however whenever you want.
Okay.
Or you pay I don't know how much it is a month, and you get unlimited talking.
Oh, I hate payments.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. How much is it a month? Like,
I'm not sure. I'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll look into it. All right, so going back to Final Fantasy VII. So before we get into the nitty gritty of all things Final Fantasy VII, I guess we could give our experience with Final Fantasy VII. What was the first time you played the game, and sort of how did it affect you? So I guess you could start.
Sure. Final Fantasy VII. I don't believe it was my first. I think I played Final Fantasy X first.
That's interesting because you're going from a pretty much like a voice acting to going to text. So must have been strange, I guess.
But like my first that kind of big JRPG was Legend of Legaia, which is a PS1 classic. It's actually the first game that I streamed on the Pop Culture Galaxy channel. That full playthrough is somewhere on YouTube, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so Final Fantasy VII looked, it looks archaic now, but it even looked archaic next to Legaia.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just it's a massive adventure. It's one of those games where, like the original 2D Final Fantasies, there's this understanding that the visuals are not a one-to-one representation of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
They are, they are stand-ins for what is actually happening.
Right.
And Final Fantasy X was kind of the first one where 8 had much more realistic visuals,
Yeah.
and then 9 went in a more cartoonish direction to kind of make up for the fact that they couldn't have the same scale that they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for Final Fantasy X, I felt like that was the first one where you were getting a one-to-one representation of what was happening in the visuals.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things about the remake, not to jump forward too far, is that you're getting that Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy 13 even version of Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah. For me, I think I may have even told the story on one of our earlier podcasts years ago. I've been doing this for a long time. But my experience with Final Fantasy VII, I think it was earlier I tried my hand at a JRPG on a Nintendo, the original Nintendo. And because back then, some of the games I would choose to play are just based on not any kind of commercial, but just like how the cover art looks. And some of these, some games have some sick cover art, and when you play the game, it's all shit. And I was like, what is this? Get this shit, and then I remember one of these games, had like some cool, like, it looks like a cool fantasy game, and it was like, oh my god, this looks awesome. Let me play it. And then, like, it's like a top-down, like, Zelda, and I was like, all right, I guess it's like Zelda. And then when you get to the enemy, the screen changes, and you're not seeing your character, you're just basically seeing the enemy, and then you had to choose whether I was like, what is this shit?
What was it? Was it Phantasy Star?
I couldn't tell you. It was such a long time ago, so it was like, I know it was a game that I just played just until that first encounter, and I was like, nope, not for me. Right? And that's when I, read up on, and I think I was learning about JRPGs. That's what turn-based, right? But then, the PlayStation came out, and then there's this commercial on television with this really cool cinematic presentation, with a guy on a bike, there was explosions, jumping on a train, there was cool stuff going on, and it was like, okay, it's a PlayStation game. I'm like, it is Final Fantasy, and then of course I'm reading about. It actually wasn't the first time I heard about Final Fantasy. It was Final Fantasy III, but I didn't play it because I was staying away from RPGs, right? JRPG. I was like not playing any of them, and every time I opened a game magazine, it was Game Pro or what was it? I think Game Pro was around, and EGM.
EGM.
Yeah. Those magazines, they always talk about how good Final Fantasy III, which is Final Fantasy VI in Japan, is, and they were like, oh, it's a game of the year, and I was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. You're not gonna get me to buy that shit, right? But then the PlayStation's coming out, and then the commercial shows up, and I was like, oh my god, that looks so good, but it's a JRPG. I don't want to play it. Screw you. You're not gonna get me to play it. Luckily, my friend who lived up the road from me, he bought his PlayStation, and he got a bunch of games, including Final Fantasy VII, and he was, I guess, generous with this time, because I think he really didn't play Final Fantasy VII, so he lent it to me. And my thing was just like, all right, let me see the opening and maybe just play a little bit of it, but I'm sure like once it gets to the mechanic, I'll just like can't bother with it and give it back. But I just really wanted to just check it out based on the commercials that I saw on television. I shit you not, I put the game in, see the opening. Oh, cool, Aerith and all that stuff. Aeris, because of this.
Right, back then. Mm-hmm.
And 2 hours go by, and I'm still playing the game because I was just so gripped by the opening bombing mission, and the story just gripped me, like the whole Midgar section, and I was just playing. And the thing is like, I was so lucky that my friend wasn't really pressuring me to give it back to him, because again, he wasn't really into that game, that I was just playing it like at my own leisure, and especially after you leave the Midgar section and go into the open world, and it was like, oh my god, this is a whole new game going on. What the hell? He's like, I thought Shinra
Mm-hmm.
was the bad guy.
It's amazing. You do that, you do the whole Midgar section, and then you realize that was just the prologue.
Right, right.
That was the beginning.
Oh, and I think too, it's funny, because I was trying to remember, like, how did I? Because back then, those kind of games, and there was no internet, you can't play them without the guide to tell you little things, how to beat bosses. And I'm trying to remember, but how did I get the guide back then? But I remembered that he actually, when he got the game, he got the guide with it, and he when I borrowed the game, said, "Oh yeah, by the way, here's a guide with it too." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." All right. So I think it was the first time I actually had a game guide too, for any game. Not I didn't even know that, because you had game guides in the game magazines. Like, okay, for the back section of it, it would have a guide section of how to do things. But like, to get a true game guide that followed the entire game, that was like my first experience with it. And like I said, Final Fantasy just introduced me to a whole new world of JRPGs that just, like, I did not know that I would get so immersed in this game. And one quick note too, going to, we're in spoiler territory. We're gonna spoil remake, and we're gonna spoil Final Fantasy VII, the original, because you can't really talk about the remake without bringing up the original, which is really a surprising element to the game, when you play this game. So, got to the final boss, Sephiroth. By the way, when you heard that Sephiroth track, One Winged Angel, like, I was just like, holy shit, like, this is a video game. This is not a movie. This is a video game I'm playing, and you hear One Winged Angel. Like, I was just so hyped fighting. However, the first time I played, I would say that I did not buff my characters enough, right? I mean, I got strong enough to get to Sephiroth, but just I was not fully prepared for Sephiroth. The thing that really saved my ass was the fact that I had Vincent in my party, and I think I had his ultimate limit. So Sephiroth
Chaos.
pretty much wiped the floor with us, right? Like, I think 2 hits in two of my party, Cloud and I think Barrett was in my party. I think they both just died, but it set off the limit for Vincent. So I unleashed Chaos, and I think Chaos comes with the regen as well. Like, you automatically regenerate. So basically, the first time I beat Sephiroth was just a match I sat back and watched. Had no interaction. It was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I was like, all right, because I'm just waiting to die. Like, I'm like, all right, when is this guy gonna die? When is Vincent gonna die? Ooh, let's see. And then all of a sudden, like, I see Sephiroth start cracking. I was like, wait, I beat him! Right? And
That's funny.
and then of course, like, when you have like the one match where it was like, oh shit, now I'm gonna die, but you get the Omni Slash, even though I didn't get the Omni Slash before, but I guess you get it for that one little last fight, and it was awesome. But then the second time I played it, I got the Knights of the Round and I got the Omni Slash, and I just basically used those two and I killed him, like, 2 hits, Knights of the Round, Omni Slash, and he was done.
Nice.
The second time I played. So yeah, that was my experience with Final Fantasy, the original. Got me into JRPGs. From there, I went on to FF8, because FF8 came out 2 years later, I think.
It might have just been 1 year.
Because 97 was Final Fantasy VII, and I think 99 was 8.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right, because 9 was 2000, like right before the PS2 came out.
Yeah, 8. Yeah. So, 9 I didn't beat. I still haven't beaten today. I still have it, but I never haven't beaten today. And then 10 I beat. 11 was a freaking MMO, so I didn't play that. Well, I did play a little bit of it. 12 I didn't beat. Have it. I played a little bit. I think it just got hard. I was just not. The system was a little bit too much for me. I was like, what the fuck, Gambit system? Then you got to get licenses. What is this?
It's a lot.
And then
wait, and then 13.
13. Yeah, 13 was pretty much easy. It was like, I think it was like maybe the game, Final Fantasy game, I didn't really need the guide to really, even though I had it. But most of the time, I only went to it when I was at a boss that I couldn't beat. I was like, how do you beat this boss? Oh, okay, I get it. Use that paradigm shift. 14 again was another MMO. I'm actually playing in 14 now. It was just pretty funny. And then 15, easiest Final Fantasy. I didn't even get a game guide for that. It was just
I've heard that. My brother played that. I haven't, but it's shot up to the top of my queue. I'm gonna be playing it
yeah, it's the
pretty soon.
easiest. It's the easiest, shortest and easiest. I think. Well, I don't know.
Shortest.
Maybe they padded it out a little bit with the Royal Edition, but yeah, it was super short, like 20 hours. You just beat that game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it was that short.
Yeah, it was super easy.
Is it? But I hear that 15 is the thing where like the first half is kind of as long as you want it to be.
Yes, that's the thing. Like people spend. I know some people who spent like hours and hours and hours for the first. I think it was the first 6 chapters or 5 chapters. First 6.
Those are like open world style, and then
Yeah.
after that, it's like
And then it just
more linear.
linear. Even though
That's
you
pretty
can,
cool.
even though you can, after you get to the linear part, there's a little element that can bring you back to the open world stuff. But yeah, it's. I mean, and then the story of Final Fantasy 15 was at parts good, and at parts like, wait, what? And then they had to fill it in with the new stuff, the new content, but both free and paid for, and it was like, yeah, it was a mess. And so now we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, and when this game was announced in 2015, a lot of people were kind of like, well, of course, the reaction was like, holy shit, but then later on, the news was this is gonna be an installment, and they were like, what? That's bullshit.
People are still calling it episodic, even though that is such a misnomer.
The correct term is multi-part or multi-game saga.
Yeah, like Mass Effect. Would you call Mass Effect Episode 1?
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's people were like, all right, and and at the time we didn't know it was Midgar. We were speculating where could the first one possibly end. I think some people thought it would end at the Aerith, spoilers, Aerith death, because that was the end of the first disc. And that would
hold on. You keep going. I have to take this super important call, but I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But just keep on riffing. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, people were talking about, Aerith death would be sort of the perfect part to end the first chapter, but I think it was with what was it? The first. It was E3 of last year, I believe, that it was confirmed that the first chapter would be in Midgar, and that they would be expanding it to be a standalone game in itself. And that's when we're like, oh my god, you're basically taking a 5-hour game and making it a full game. Like, how are they going to do that? How long is the first chapter going to be? Is the first chapter going to be just 5 hours? Is the first chapter going to be, even if they expand it, like how much can they expand Midgar to be a full length Final Fantasy game? Because they said the way they're approaching the series is akin to the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy, where each game in itself is a full length game. And so if you look at the Midgar section, which only took 5 hours or even 6 hours to complete, but then and then on top of that, the final boss of that section was the motor ball. Like, how do you have a sort of conclusion, so to speak, to this game if it's only the motor ball? It was like, oh my god. But closer we got to the release date, we found out more information. We found out, okay, when this game is coming out. April 10th. Well, actually, it was supposed to come out March 3rd, and then they pushed it to April. And we found out, well, the game would be longer. We found out different characters. We saw new trailers, and you know, the closer we got to this game, you know, get more excited because you know they showed more stuff, and so now here we are. You know, April 10th is come and gone, and we're playing this game. And I know Zach is not here yet to really give his point of view, but I guess I'll sort of, before we get into super spoilers, tell you how I felt about this game. This game, I would say, was super amazing. It brought back the experience of playing the game for the first time, with the added layer that now you're actually seeing what you saw in your head, right? And here comes Zach, so I guess I can sort of tell him where I'm coming from. So Zach, you're back?
Yes.
All right. So basically, I was just riffing on like you know, start of the closer we got to the release of the game, the more we found out. You know, people were like, okay, is this gonna be what section is gonna be in? And they found out it's just gonna be Midgar. People were like, oh my god, Midgar? It's just Midgar? It's like it's a 5-hour part of the game. Like, and how are they gonna expand it to be a full game? Because they said the release strategy of the series is really equal to Final Fantasy 13, where each installment is its own full-length saga. So how are you gonna do that with 7, especially with the end boss being the motorball that we remember, and then after that to spend the, you know, so how do you make that a standalone game?
It's gonna be really fun to like look back. You know, it's a good thing that podcasts like tend not to have a terribly long shelf life,
right?
Because thinking back at, you know, the podcasts that I listen to where they're like, how are they gonna make this work? It's like, well, you just saw how they made it work.
Yeah.
And a great one was one of the trailers showed Jesse and Cloud in the doing the parachute from the end of chapter 3 or 4 or whatever it is.
4, yeah.
And they're like, oh no, but they don't do parachutes until the end of disc 2. What's happening here? It's like, well, I mean, you know that they're adding new stuff to the game. They probably just have a new scene where they use parachutes. God, get over yourself.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, it's nothing personal against these personalities, but it's like, come on, use your brain.
Yeah. And then another thing I was about to get into to again continue the riff is just before we got into spoilers was just my general feeling of this new title, and just how playing the game kind of brought me back to the original in terms of like the experience of just seeing these characters that I loved in a whole new setting and a whole new look. And actually it really sort of made what I pictured in my head while playing the game, because I think I played the game when it just came out. You played it later.
Yeah,
to where you could experience. Yeah.
For me, definitely stuff like One Winged Angel wasn't, and like the FMVs weren't as revolutionary as they were. I mean, because I had played FF10 already.
Right.
But they were still cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you just kind of have to go, oh, well, of course it's not going to look at a game that ends in 7 isn't going to look as good as the game in the same series that ends in 10.
Yeah.
Like, and some people just can't get over it. Like, some people can't get over the way the CG field model characters look like 3D sprites, you know?
Right.
With the or Cloud's outfit, you know, he looks like he's wearing a purple onesie, you know? Like, and some people just cannot get over that. And like, okay, that's okay if you can't get over it. Like, like no foul against you for not being able to get over it, but also don't foul me or whoever who loves it. Yeah. You know, like, you don't want to play it? Fine, don't play it. Go play Final Fantasy X. Yeah. Go play Final Fantasy whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, kind of in historical context, which is important, but also, again, if you don't want to deal with that, then you don't have to deal with that. Right. Like, I don't want to go back to Final Fantasy II.
Yeah.
That's, like, the one that I don't like. Oh. That and 13 too are the ones that I don't like.
I've always wanted to sort of played all the Final Fantasy, but like 1 and 2 are so hard to get. Like I just
1 holds up. I promise you, 1 holds up.
No, to get in terms of like getting a copy. Like what am I gonna play it on? Yeah, right. Like 3.
There There are ways.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I have emulators, and I have it for the PSP. Where they remade it for the PSP, was
The
it?
PSP version is the best version because those sprites are gorgeous.
Yeah. So I could technically still play them on that, but I'm like, should I even waste my time?
I'd
I
say
guess if
one holds up.
I guess if I'm going to do the playthrough of every Final Fantasy, I should. But I just want to jump into three and and start
Yeah,
from
I mean
there.
that's the thing. It's like you play what you want to play.
Yeah.
If you're in like a mood where you've kind of got the time, especially on like a handheld, like if you have like the actual PSP and PSP version
Mm-hmm.
of Final Fantasy One, it's great to like if you're gonna ride the well, no one's riding the train anymore.
Yeah.
But like I got a Switch and I pretty much just play. I do my dailies in Tetris 99 in
Mm-hmm.
bed,
Mm-hmm.
and that's pretty much it. But as soon as the country reopens, if that ever happens,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be so happy to be on the subway, being like, I'm playing Resident Evil 4 on the Switch. Oh yeah.
Nice.
But we'll see.
So yeah. So basically, my again going back to my experience with the remake. So I'm really not comparing it to this game because it's apples and oranges. But like when Death Stranding came out and I played the game and experienced the story. Oh, it was an amazing story. I gotta say, like, I mean, after the ending of that game if affected me, but I think it just affected maybe I think it lasted about a couple of days or so. I'm still thinking about this game, and I think I'm gonna be thinking about this game for a long time because it was just such a really if you go back and you play because right now I'm replaying it for the purposes of making it into a movie so where I don't have to play it again to get the story. I'll just make it into by the time I finish editing because I started editing this thing. I think by the time everything will be done, it's gonna be an 8 hour movie. But hey,
It's a mini series.
pretty much right. So it's like the story. If you start from the beginning to the end, it's just a bombastic like super explosive like and then of course you have your really tender moments with all the characters so it's really a balance between like selling you on these wonderful characters while giving this super action oriented advent children style amazing game right as a matter of fact there were some scenes in this game that I was like oh my god it looks so much better than advent children. I was like
There's a lot that looks, maybe not in terms of just how many polygons are in
yeah
everything,
right
but like the lighting
yeah
and the texture
yeah
and the
I was like
animation, a lot of times I'm like, this looks genuinely better than Advent Children.
yeah
How
yeah
about that?
right
Huh.
um
Um, and kind of a thing that gets unfairly over, it's gotten its share of praise, but it gets kind of unfairly overlooked,
mhm.
is how awesome the battle system is in this game.
Awesome.
Like it takes these days, nowadays, it takes a lot for me to want to play a game twice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
especially if it's a big game.
Yeah.
I'm at chapter 8 on hard
Hard
mode
mode.
now. Like pretty much the next day I was just like, I'm going back in. Let's do it again. And I was told like, oh, it's too hard. You got to be careful. And I was like, we'll see. And so I wasn't at level cap when I started, but I quickly got it because you get an XP multiplier, an AP multiplier.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people who are like grinding for AP so that they can have all their materia maxed out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to do that. I mean, if you know your way around the battle system,
Yeah.
then you're gonna be okay.
So
You'll get killed. I've gotten killed a few times.
let me ask you a question.
But,
Your first playthrough, did you find it challenging? Some of the bosses, or it's not even some of the bosses. Some regular enemies. Like I mean, granted. So, full disclosure, people, I did have the corona. I was sick for a long time.
But you're feeling much better now.
As a matter of fact, the day that I got this, because I pre-ordered this from Amazon and I didn't get it until the Wednesday after the initial release. I think, and it was around the day before is when I started to feel better, and then I got the Wednesday. So I would say the first 6 or 7 chapters of this game, my body was still in shell shock from the sickness. So it's like I had a different kind of experience during those earlier chapters with the game than I mean, I was enjoying the story, but I was telling you, while I was fighting the bosses, I think I felt a lot more frustrated, because my body was just like still recovering, and like the sound, especially like when you're fighting the bosses, and just like it was hitting me differently.
It's a lot, and it's just there's a lot to keep track of in
Yeah,
that battle system. And I didn't die as much as pretty much everyone who I've talked to.
yeah, I died a
I
lot.
The only times I died more than once on a fight were during the optional VR bosses that
Mm.
pop up later.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and I think there's two reasons for that. One is because I'm a super elite gamer boy, and
mm-hmm.
two is, and this is not product placement, I promise, but it's because of this friggin' thing.
Oh,
It's my Astro controller, which has two back buttons.
nice, nice.
And so the default lock-on mode is you lock on with by clicking R3, and then
Yeah,
you use the right stick to change targets, and the camera moves automatically.
yeah, yeah.
And that's what pretty much everyone uses. But for me, I changed it to the D-pad to switch targets. The
Mm-hmm.
camera, you have to move the camera yourself. And they move the camera automatically because you can't move the right stick while attacking
Right.
at the same time. You have to move your hand off the stick to
Yeah.
hit the buttons. But if you map square and triangle to the back buttons,
Mm-hmm.
you still have camera control.
Ah.
And so I switched the lock on to the D-pad, and I feel like that's made a really big difference for me.
Mm. Gotcha.
It might just be in my head. Like maybe if I went to the other control, I would have this kind of the same experience. But I feel like it makes me less forced to rely on the game to tell me where I'm supposed to be hitting,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what I'm supposed to be hitting, and what I'm supposed to be looking at.
Right.
And I have more control over that. So, I'd like to talk to more people who have those fancy controllers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not a fan of the DualShock 4. I know I'm insane because everyone loves the DualShock 4,
Uh-huh.
but I've never been like fully used to it.
Right.
And so I got like the little mini game pad, and I use that on some games. But then when I got this Astro C40 TR,
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, oh, that's it. This is my controller now. I
So,
use it on 90% of the games I play.
right. And I think one of the other reasons too why I kept on dying, because this game is punishing if you're not playing correctly. And in terms of like, okay, you have a bunch of tools in your arsenal. Some of the stuff they give you tutorials on, some of the stuff you kind of, I guess, experiment with, because like again, watching a lot of podcasts after playing this game, people were talking about, oh, how they did this, and this material can allow you to do this. I'm like, wait, what? For instance, it was after I beat the game that I realized that someone said that if you're blocking in Punisher mode, you counter. Did not know that during my first
Oh
playthrough.
my god, I don't know how I would have made it through without that.
I did not know that. So the second time I
You
played
can't
Reeve,
skip through those tutorial messages, Mark.
well, did it say that? I don't remember if it said that. Did it say if you block during counter? I don't think it said that though. It just said,
I knew
you what?
I knew it, and the game must have told me at some point.
Oh, I guess maybe.
But I mean, it slips past you. It slips past you. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, even if the thing is, those tutorials is so much like, I think even some of the stuff that I remember reading, like by the time you get to the next few chapters, you forgot about it because like maybe you don't really use it as much.
I don't know how you beat Reno without it.
I was dodging. You do it when you dodge, you flip over his head and he goes off balance, and then you
Oh,
boom.
okay, I didn't even know that.
See, that's what I'm saying. There's things that you can do that the game doesn't really tell you. So yeah, like when I did the dodge, I flipped over him. He goes off balance, and that's when I'm able to like either focus or I think did I have triple slash at that point? Maybe I did. And then you pressure him.
Triple slashes beast.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you get giddy anytime there's like a bunch of like not low level but enemies that go down in a regular combo.
Yeah, yeah.
And you triple slash and they just all fall down around you.
Yes.
Oh,
so Dodge was my best friend during those missions with the like one-on-one enemies, like Rufus. I was just dodging,
Rufus was tough. I had to use a couple mega elixirs on with Rufus. So we'll see how that plays out.
So let me ask you this: your first playthrough, who was the hardest boss? Let me see if you get the same thing.
Rufus.
Oh.
I think he's the only one who killed me. No, he didn't defeat me. Let's see. Abzu defeated me twice. The one after Don Corneo. Mm-hmm. He defeated me twice because I didn't realize that you could. It took me that long to realize that you could dodge his like tidal wave attack.
Oh, the tidal wave. Oh, right.
Yeah, it only comes out of one of the pipes at a time.
I mean, I saw that the first time. It's really what was hard to dodge was when he pounced on you, but he was not my hardest boss.
Who was?
The Hell House. I hated that son
I
bitch.
know people who've gotten stuck on Hell House, but I got him my first try.
I know, like there's another friend of mine. I hated him so much when he said I never died on him. I was like, shut up. And the thing is, I was on line with him while I was playing. Like he was playing. I think he was playing Final Fantasy as well, but he was like ahead of me. Like not that far ahead of. Well, yeah, not that far. Actually, it's funny, right? He started out ahead of me. So for the entirety of the game, he was ahead of me until chapter 18. I beat the game before him, and I was ready to just like, dude, because when I beat the game, he was actually online with me as well, and then I was ready to like, dude, what does that mean? Because I thought he beat the game before me, and it's like, don't say anything. I was like, wait a second, you didn't beat the game yet? What the hell, man? So who am I gonna talk to? And then he beat it like right after, and then we had a conversation about it.
But this was like one of the first games that my brother's beaten before me.
Really?
Usually, I overlap him, but I guess I've been doing so much work in quarantine that he started before me, and we were kind of at the same pace, but he beat it a couple of days before I did.
Now, did he play the original before this?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, I guess the big question, I think that's all we could really say about the battle system. Battle system is amazing.
Just one last like shout out to the battle system is the Corneo Coliseum and the VR events in Shinra HQ have not one-on-one, but you only get one of your characters. So when you do it as Cloud, you do a lot of you're supposed to do a lot of Punisher mode counterattacks.
Right.
And then when you do it as Tifa, you're like, uh-oh, how do I beat these guys? How do I beat these exact same enemies, but only as Tifa? And then after you figure that out, it's the exact same, how do I beat these same guys, but only as Barret? And it's really, it shows off how much fun it is to play as all of those characters.
Yeah,
I always have Cloud as my party leader by default, but very often do I just hit up or down as soon as a battle starts. Just
another thing they didn't tell you that you could do is to change your leader character by default.
Yeah, I knew that you could do that. Like I figured it out just by playing around the menus. Yeah, but I wound up never using it because it was kind of disorienting.
Oh, right. As soon as the battle starts, it just shifts to somebody else. Wait, what?
It's like, wait, where am I?
But yeah, it's really challenging in the fact that it was such a great balance between. I think this is what 15 really wanted to be. Because 15, again, I mean, I'm not talking about plot specifics, but I would say this 15 is super easy, and the reason why it's so easy is you literally cannot die. If you would have to just put the controller down to fucking die in that game, right? Like as soon as first of all, when you die, they give you time to either walk to your other party members for them to heal you, or take a high potion, right? And it's just like it. Like I said, it's just basically I don't remember ever getting a game over screen on that game. It was just super easy. This, on the other end, holy shit, it was punishing. It was just like, and what got me frustrated. I think this happens with about 90% of the bosses that's in this game, is that once you get their life to, a certain part where they get to their third form, they start doing their cheese moves.
And their
Oh my
stagger
god.
resets.
They have their cheese moves where they'll basically wipe your crew. Like if you're not at a certain amount of HP, you're basically wiped, man. And then you're spending like that entire time where you could be getting his life all the way down, healing or reviving, and it's like by the time you revive one person, that person is dead, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah. I haven't gotten like stuck on a boss in hard mode yet. Although most of them are later.
Right.
But one thing that I have done is I've been working on leveling up my HP up materia.
Yeah.
Just like if they're gonna cheese, I'm gonna have 9999 HP.
Yeah.
Because you can have a maximum of 100% bonus HP. I need to get one more HP plus because I have 5,
right,
which is enough for everyone, for 2 party members to have plus 100 and 1 party member to have plus 50.
Right.
But they're not all maxed out yet. It's something I have to work on. But I think that is a huge survivability tool in hard mode.
Yeah, one of the things that I did to really like, Aerith was a lifesaver to me. She, number one, she had the long range attack, so it was like a million times when you had these bosses that were super difficult, like I just go to Aerith and it was like attack from a distance. Even though like sometimes I'll be fighting from a distance and then Cloud dies, I was like, Cloud, why the fuck are you attacking him? Back the fuck off, man. Right?
Yeah, I wish you could kind of tell him that.
Like stay away from the guy, dude.
You just it's the game kind of telling you to switch between your characters off.
Yeah. So she was a lifesaver because she had, long range attack, and she had healing wind in prayer.
Which is super useful on hard mode, especially.
Yeah. And then you have Barrett was my other lifesaver. What I did with Barrett, though, I pretty much made him a tank. I gave him all the MP ups and HP ups. I gave him like auto cure, and I gave him I think it was steadfast. Steadfast, I think it was called.
Steadfast block.
Yeah. And I think I gave him another one though. But basically he had more pinks than greens and blues. And like, when it was all said and done, my first playthrough. Right now, my second playthrough is like 8,000 HP right now. But I think he was around 5,000 during my first, like when I got later on the first playthrough, and he was basically my tank. He was
Are you doing
guy.
it on hard or normal again?
Normal, just for the sake of recording. And it's, I guess it's almost like easy mode, because like I was just breezing through the enemies.
Well, a lot of people do recommend for your second play, to do it twice before hard, which I think is a little.
I guess it's cheap. I guess because it's
the level cap is 50.
Yeah.
But like the big thing you want to do is like whatever materia you want to use on hard, master it on normal.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about that. I'm kind of, I'm playing it as I go, but I haven't gotten stuck yet, so we'll see how it plays out.
Because right now, I think I'm level 47 with one character, level 44 with another character. But basically, I'm in mid 40s. I'm almost at 50, and I'm at chapter 14. Did all the side quests, and I'm about to hit up Cornero. So I'm on chapter 14. So yeah, by the time I get to chapter 18, I may I'm not sure may hit level 50. But I am leveling up the character. I may play it on hard mode one of these days. I don't know. I may play it hard mode, but I guess
Do it.
yeah, I guess
Or just wait for the PS5 version. You know it's coming.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, PC version is coming next year, so I might get that. I might get that instead. Um. So I guess we can move on to the narrative of this game. Um, and one of the things I guess I is my concern, and I think I did watch a few podcasts with people who've only played this version of the game and not know anything, and they had a hard time. So I guess for newbies, this game is hard to recommend. It's easy to recommend for the characters and for the battle system and for everything else, but I would say 90%, maybe 90 to 95% of the game you get the in terms of the story, and then the end just might go off the rails if you don't know
You
anything
know
about
what
it.
this game is like?
Which
This game, Final Fantasy VII Remake, is like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
right?
My brother saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by himself in Ukraine,
Uh huh.
and then he took his friends to go see it, and a couple of them, maybe some of them knew, but a lot of people outside of the United States don't know about the
Yeah.
Manson family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, "What the hell happened at the end?
Mhm.
What was that?" And he goes, "Oh, you don't have this cultural frame of reference."
Yeah.
Now, it's probably offensive or insensitive to compare, the murder of Sharon Tate to a video game.
Right. Right.
But,
I
but
mean, they
you
made the
understand
movie.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, they made the movie where she lives, so
Yeah.
it's fair game at this point.
And
I
I
guess.
love that movie.
Yeah.
I think it's my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie,
Right.
period. It's
Right.
one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mhm.
Before that, it was Django Unchained, which is not one of my favorite movies of all time, but it was my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie.
Mhm.
But now I'm like 100% Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mhm.
Uh, I want a Brad Pitt tattoo on my chest. Just kidding. But um, but I think that if you haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII and you go into Final Fantasy VII Remake,
Mhm.
you get a Nomura experience.
Yeah.
You get a Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
You get a I don't know what's happening, but it's fun to bash these monsters.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, if you kind of know what to expect from a Tetsuya Nomura game of just like, I'm sure this makes sense, but I'll have to read a bunch of wikis before it does,
Mhm. Mhm.
then like fine. But if you come into this having played Final Fantasy VII and like knowing that game like the back of your hand, like so many people do,
Right.
like even if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII for a decade or more,
Mhm.
like that's a game that just it sticks in your memory
Yeah.
like nothing else.
Like me, I don't think I haven't played the game for a decade. Like I've seen let's plays like in different scenes and stuff that kept me my memory up to date with the game, but in terms of me physically playing the game from start to finish, I haven't done that since the
But
early 2000s.
But you know, with that context, however far back in the memory it is,
Yeah.
What Final Fantasy VII Remake says about a player's relationship with something that they have nostalgia for,
Mm-hmm.
and what it does with the villain Sephiroth,
Yep.
and what it does with the very idea of destiny, and how it is good and bad
Yeah.
to give in to destiny and to rail against it.
Right.
It's like it's 10 out of 10, baby.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, for newcomers, you'll play this game. I mean, there are things spread out throughout the game that are like little drops that you probably wouldn't know unless you played the game. But it's not something that will detract you. You may just look at it like, oh, I guess this was something that will be explained later. Stuff like Cloud's visions of Aerith, both times, like when when he saw the holy materia, and the second time when he cried. You wouldn't get that until if you knew the game. But again, it's things that you probably think would be explained, and of course the whole reunion thing, like, or what is this? It's a flash,
Right, but that's all part of it. It's like a game, especially a remake, is you bring to it the memories that you have of the original game. That is part of the game.
So you think the basic decision, because this is a bold move with this game, right? It's a remake that has been hotly anticipated, but at the same time, the way the industry works, right? The way the industry works is we're going to make a product for the largest demographic possible, right? Yes, we have fans of certain things, like the MCU, for example, right? You have the Marvel fans who've grown up on the comic books or the cartoons or whatever, right? Who are automatically going to go to the movies because these are characters they love. But you would say that the MCU is a product, a successful product based on the fact that majority of the people who go to these movies don't necessarily read the books or watch the cartoons, but are just invested in these films. And I think those are testament to, if you go on any product that's that's been a successful, it's always because there's a mass consumption from people who don't necessarily are following certain trends or whatever, but just like, okay, this is something that I would love. But it's like, you would think Square says, all right, we're remaking this game. It's a popular game, so, but at the same time, we can't just cater to the fans of the original. We would have to make sure that everyone, if this is their first Final Fantasy, I think that was probably one of the weakness, I guess, for 15, is like they wanted it to be a brand new game for everyone to experience, and you left, yes, you might have gotten the people who have never played a Final Fantasy before to be happy about it, but then you kind of segmented your core fan base who were looking for that Final Fantasy challenge. But I mean, it sold well, so because they made it for the mass audience, right?
I mean, with 15, it's a miracle that game even exists at all.
Right.
Like at this point, after how long it took to get that friggin' game off the ground.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that was Tetsuya Nomura's fault.
It was.
Is he to blame? I don't know, because he was taken off the game and put on Kingdom Hearts 3 because everything was falling behind. I think because he was taking forever to do anything. That's kind of speculation.
I mean, it's speculation, but it's like you can only look at what this track record, right? Like, the time between the last Kingdom Hearts. I mean, granted, he was putting in spin-offs and stuff like that, but what was it? The last Kingdom Hearts he did, what was that? 365 or whatever?
Well, there was Days. There was there, unfortunately, even though the narrative of Kingdom Hearts 2, then 13 years, then Kingdom Hearts 3.
Right.
Like, it works, but, there was Days, Birth by Sleep, 3D.
Because, so
those are the big ones.
I have them all. I started playing the first one when it first came out. I didn't finish it, so I didn't even bother getting 2. When the spin-offs, when they were coming out, I didn't realize they were super important. I thought they were just like, okay, you have a...
Same.
If you have a handheld, then you get to experience the Kingdom Hearts experience, but at the same time, it's not key. So I always wondered, can you go from 1 to 2 to 3 without playing the games in between? Like, or would it even make any sense if you did that? Like,
some parts would, some parts wouldn't. You can go from 1 to 2 pretty well because there's an amnesia thing where he forgets about everything between 1 and 2, which at least is only one game.
Yeah.
But then from 2 to 3, it's like 3D is the direct sequel to 2.
Right.
And you can't go from 2 to 3 without having an understanding of what happens in 3D. Mm-hmm. Even though 3D is probably the weakest one in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Well, aside from the card one, Chain of Memories, but that's just not my style.
Yeah.
But Birth by Sleep, Birth by Sleep is probably my favorite Kingdom Hearts. Period.
Okay.
but it's like the prequel that's on PSP, and it's like, where does that fit in? When do you play that? And it's kind of just like, you play one, you play two, you play friggin' everything else that takes forever,
Mm-hmm.
and then you play three. And I did it. I did it when I played three. It came out in like January or something, right?
Yeah.
And then I didn't play it until March or May
Mm-hmm.
because I was playing one.
Yeah.
And I cheated. I didn't play Chain of Memories because I don't like that game. But I had the save file beaten
Mm-hmm.
from when I played it on PS3.
Yeah.
So I watched the movies from that
Yeah.
on on the PS3,
Mm-hmm.
and then I played I watched the movie of Days, then I played Kingdom Hearts 2, then I played Birth by Sleep, which still holds up, great game. Then watched the movie of Coded, which is terrible. Coded is garbage, and you can skip Coded, even like if it's like, oh, it's just like the story or whatever. Doesn't matter. And the 3D, I played that, and the prologue of that, and it's just like, let me play Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah. So I have them all here. To one day I'm gonna just jump into them and just play them through.
And you know what? Like, yeah, it does help. It helps. It helps a lot to have played all those.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to play Kingdom Hearts 3, just play Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, just jump in. You'll piece things together. You'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I only watched the last season of Game of Thrones. I didn't watch any of the rest of it.
Don't bring that
it
crap up.
I figured it out.
Because if they did
I felt my way through. I was going in blind, but I made it through to the other side. It worked.
Yeah.
Justice for Cersei.
So basically, I think he was going super slow on Kingdom Hearts, and then not only he did Kingdom Hearts, I think he directed the movie, the Final Fantasy VII movie, and then years later they put him on.
Laura directed that?
The Advent Children. Yeah, he directed that one, and then of course they put him on. Did they take him off at that point? When they put him on 7? Did they take him off versus 13 at that point?
They took him off of. I think it was already 15 when they took him off that.
Was it? Because they announced it. They announced 7 in 2015. When did they announce versus 13 becoming 15?
I believe that was 2013.
Right. Yeah. So I think.
But it's weird because he took so long to do anything that, like, the AAA thing, and then 1 year Kingdom Hearts, next year Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And I think that we're not going to have to wait as long as we think we're going to have to wait for the next 7.
Yeah. But
yeah.
even going by that, the 7, this 7, it was announced in 2015 and it came out in 2020, 5 years. That's a relatively short amount of time since the game was announced.
That's how badly Square Enix fucked up. Is that 5 years is like, oh, that's not so bad,
right? But
it's like nothing compared to Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, if you go by 15, 15 was announced in 2006. Well, as versus 13, and didn't come out till 2016. Like, holy shit, right? And the same thing with Kingdom Hearts, from the last sequel, Kingdom Hearts 2 to 3, was even longer. So yeah, it's, you look at.
I think the message to be taken here is that Square Enix took what do they call it in baseball? A development year?
Yeah.
They took a development generation.
Yeah.
They took from, like, that whole 13 era.
Yeah.
Like, they were all on vacation.
I mean, they didn't.
Like 13, you can see. I don't like to poo-poo all over 13.
Yeah.
Because I think that 13 and Lightning Returns do some good things.
Right.
I think that there's a line to be drawn from 7 to 10 to 13 to 7 Remake.
Right.
But in terms of their other stuff, in terms of Square Enix being an RPG factory, there's a lot that they missed out on that whole era. Like, their most high-profile non-Final Fantasy games were like, that are RPGs, not including like Just Cause and Tomb Raider, which is a
Yeah.
whole other thing.
Yeah.
That like I'm glad they did, because if they didn't, they'd probably be out of business.
Right.
But like, I Am Setsuna, like, who even remembers that? And it's from what I understand, it's a good game, but like they were doing like I Am Setsuna could have been a 3DS game, like Bravely Default. Like, they released Bravely Default and didn't know what to do with it, because they were like, this isn't the kind of game we make, and it was hailed as one of the best Square Enix games that whole generation.
Right.
And they were just like, what do we do with this really good game that we don't like, that everybody else likes? It was their Apex Legends.
Right.
If they were EA in that equation.
Yeah.
And like, I think that they took that whole time off, but from 15, we can say that it starts with 15, which was what, 2016?
Yeah, it came out 2016.
Yeah,
so it took exactly 10 years, 2006 to.
Like, they already had the momentum of having announced Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, but like then 15 comes out, and regardless of the critical mixed reception it got, it came out.
Yep.
And it was a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah.
The train was back on the rails.
Right.
World of Final Fantasy, I understand a lot of people, it's kind of like 15, that some people love it and some people are just like, whatever, I hate this.
I didn't even play that game. Yeah.
It's on the top, near the top of my queue now. FF7's really got me like, it's got me excited to play other Final Fantasies.
Well, I'm going into 14 again, because I was still on Realm Reborn, so I'm trying to get to Heaven's Ward and the other two expansions. So that's
and 14 through this whole thing has been like keeping Square alive. Yep. And doing like such a fantastic job. I only played a very little bit of it because I can't justify spending the subscription fee.
Yeah, I know it's a little.
I really want to, because I played some of it for free.
Real quick, fix the yeah. I know it's gonna probably change your settings.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't have to change it that time.
Awesome. Yeah, so yeah,
But yeah, I think Square is back, because like 15, Kingdom Hearts 3, FF7, stuff like high profile successes that like stuff like I Am Setsuna should have been heralded as like, oh my god, it's the old Square, they're back, but it kind of came and went. And regardless of whatever the quality of the game was, and play it, but like it didn't stick.
Right.
But like Octopath Traveler stuck. People, they talk about that game. They like that game. It sold over 1 million copies on Switch.
Right.
Now they're hyping up Bravely Default 2. It seems like, even though Lost Sphere, like, that just poof. It seems like Square Enix is back. If they're gonna stick to a reasonable schedule for Final Fantasy VII, and I think last year, right, was when the last big FF14 expansion came out, and that was a huge deal.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with Kingdom Hearts. If they do, because I know they're doing like some mobile game, but if they do like an actual game, I know those are fighting words, but whatever.
Well, without spoiling it, is Kingdom Hearts done now, or
no?
It's still
that arc is done, but like there's still a secret ending that's like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah, well, I think I heard. Because people are talking about how Nomura, I think, not only is he introducing a lot of meta shit in Final Fantasy VII, but there's a lot of stuff in Kingdom Hearts that pertains to his, I guess, maybe, I don't think he's sorry about it, but his loss of not getting to do his Versus 13.
Yeah, there is definitely some potential for, if not like an actual crossover with 15, then like with the crossover of his idea of 15. It could even be something like like if 15 as a concept has a nobody,
Right. Right.
it would be something that's introduced in Kingdom Hearts.
Right.
Like a nobody, not of a person, but of like a whole
So
game.
the DLC Remind didn't finish
I don't
the
know. I
story.
didn't play Remind yet.
Okay.
I'm waiting for it to be on a better sale because I've heard it's kind of meh.
Okay. Okay. All right.
But one of these days.
Yeah. So I don't know. You know, Tetsuya. Um.
Yeah, Tetsuya Nomura,
He.
he's someone who, like, I gotta give Square Enix credit for not firing him
Yeah.
because they could have.
Right. Like.
They would be totally justified in doing so, but they believe in him.
Yeah.
They believe in his ability to tell a story, even if he doesn't nail it all the time.
And he's been in.
Like, there's debate as to whether Kingdom Hearts 3 nails it. You know, I think
Yeah.
in some ways it nails it, in some ways it doesn't. But
Right.
in some ways it's kind of like Final Fantasy 15 in that, like, it's a miracle it even happened at all.
Mm.
But with 7, like, I guess if you hate it, then there's nothing I can do for you.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're in with 7,
Mm-hmm.
And I am, and I believe you are, right?
Yes. Absolutely. All the way. 100%.
You know, it's like, oh, that's why they kept him around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he shoots a lot of 7s, he shoots a lot of 6s, but when he shoots a 10, he shoots a 10.
I mean, granted, Kingdom Hearts series is all Tetsuya, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one had Yoshinori Kitase as producer to rein shit in,
And a co-director.
and you had the original scenario writer from the first game. I think Nojima as well. I don't remember.
Was Nojima the co-director?
He was. I think he might be co-director as well.
Yeah, I can't remember the names because of this head of mine, but there is a co-director.
Yeah. Let me see. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah, let's see. Writers Kazu CJ Nojima Motoma Toriyama, which I think Toriyama is from 13, I believe. So the director is 3 directors. It's Nomura, Naoki Hamaguchi, and Motomo Toriyama. Which
we are so sorry for those pronunciations.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yeah, Toriyama. Toriyama, I think he's the battle system designer. Well, director actually of X2, Final Fantasy X-2, and
10-2, good game.
All the 13 series.
You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, so I believe a lot of people blame him because there's some weaknesses in this game. The weaknesses I think is the padding. Certain things are really padded, like chapter 5.
14.
No, 5. Well, that, but because that
all
was
the side quest chapters. All the chapters that are side quests.
But
are
no, but
eh.
even the ones that are just straight up dungeons. 5 and 6 were just like a pain.
Oh, those are the ones on the way to the Airbuster.
Yes. Because
they're basically just really big dungeons.
And then the graveyard, which I think really should have been a side quest.
I'm looking forward to getting to that part in hard mode because I don't know if I'm gonna like it.
Yeah, it was just a pain, and it was just put in such a part. I think that and chapter 14 were inserted in parts where urgency or agency, is that it?
Whatever.
Or should be, because
right, because the plane's gonna fall. Yeah, but I gotta play with these ghosts first.
Right, and then okay, we gotta get Aerith from Shinra headquarters, but let's first help. I mean, granted, there's a little bit more excuse, but let's help these people around. Let's find this guy's chocobos for him or whatever. Let's steal Don Carnero's jewel treasures and stuff like that. But it's like, no, you need to go get Aerith, right? So it's like, I think the placement of these side quests are inappropriate. Maybe they should figure out a way to kind of the next game, like if they're gonna do side quests, put them in parts that don't interrupt the narrative flow of the game. Because at that point, especially chapter 14, that was a pain in the ass. Like, including the fact that one of the side quests has to be done during the main scenarios, and he was like,
My
"Are you
brother
kidding
actually
me?"
warned me about that. I lucked out because he was ahead of me, and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna do all these side quests and then go on." And he's just like, "Hint, hint. One of them you can't do until you proceed along the main story." So I was like, "Oh, okay, okay."
Yeah,
So I did everything that I could, and it kind of happened to work out. But the last one I tried was
right.
like, "Oh, this must be the one that I can't do until later." So it worked out.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was one of the weakness, and I think the level designs of the elongated corridors and so much sort of like long thing they blame on whatever his name, yeah, Toriyama, because of what 13 came out to be. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much for a few reasons. One is that the battle system is just so good
yeah,
that I enjoyed
right.
fighting almost all the time.
Hmm.
Even when it's like when you're fighting against someone that's not challenging, just the fact that they ragdoll in such a great way when they die, it's just like it's
Hmm.
awesome. And two is like it's a very I think it's very reductive, and the internet is a place for that.
Yeah,
To be like, this is just a hallway, yes.
yeah,
And I think that there's a degree you can say that about 13 and you wouldn't entirely be wrong.
right,
But like you can also say the same thing about 10, and you can say the
right,
same thing about 7, its first part.
yeah.
And even after that, it's like, yeah, it's an open world, but there's a world, but it's not open.
But
You gotta go to Column first, then you
yeah,
gotta go to Chocobo Ranch, then you gotta go to the cave, then you gotta go to the next place.
yeah. But what I
Like,
believe, is and I did watch this earlier feature on YouTube about what made the experience in 10 different from the experience in 13, and even though they were both technically linear games, and I think what they were saying, and one of the things they said, I think Sakaguchi was still working for Square at the time,
yeah.
um, but like one of the things that uh, broke the monotony of just going through the hallway to the next checkpoint is that you had variety in gameplay while you're making the trek to the next story beat.
Yeah,
While
and
in
in
13,
environments.
yeah,
Yeah.
while in 13 you just felt like for 2 hours straight before you get to the next story beat, you were just like, okay, walking, fighting, walking, fighting, walking, fighting, walking, fighting, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
Definitely, like because 10 feels like you're going from Mexico to Canada,
hmm,
and 13 feels like you're walking from Bowery to 42nd Street.
right,
Like they're both long journeys, but one of them has a lot more variety,
hmm, hmm,
and that is definitely a good point.
yeah,
And it's kind of a miracle in that way that 7 doesn't feel as constricted as it could be because actually, now that I use that comparison, 7 is a lot like walking from Bowery to 42nd Street.
yeah, yeah. I mean, granted, 7 isn't as egregious as 13 because it do, especially I guess when you talk about chapter 6, I believe, or you had to do the whole sun lamp shit, right, right. So you had a sort of a variety of different types of gameplay within the fact that yes, you're moving from one point to the next and you're fighting a bunch of bosses, but then you had different things, different puzzles to solve
And
within
it
that.
helps. A really big thing with that is that they're always talking.
Yes, yes,
They're always
yeah,
saying so. Like I was funny because I was streaming it. I've streamed every second I played Final Fantasy VII, and I like to talk to myself anyway, which is why I start streaming,
right,
so I don't seem so crazy.
yeah,
But I would start talking, and then it'd go, oh no, they're talking.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And then I try to like go, all right, so this actually reminds me. Oh, they're talking again. Okay, all right.
yeah,
And like that's good.
yeah,
That's good that they are constantly talking and giving character moments,
mm-hmm,
but also the game very rarely. It happens a few times,
mm-hmm,
but fewer times on hard mode or second playthroughs where the game stops and is just like, oh, here's what you got to do. Usually, Tifa will be like, all right, here's what we've got to do,
mm-hmm,
and like they will talk it through in
yeah,
character
yeah,
rather than having a big box come up and be like, to do this, you got to do this, and then
yeah,
go do this.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that really helps.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was pretty fun, and like I said, not as bad as 13, and but with a little design. But I hope again we'll talk more about what we want from the second game a little bit later. But like hopefully that's one of the things that they I guess fix. Only because like now we're moving out of Midgar, and I think they don't necessarily have to pad the game as much going forward because of the fact that they're going into a world now. I'm sure they're gonna still have side quests, but it'll hopefully feels a little bit more organic. The fact that they're going in the open world.
I'm a little worried. I feel like the open world makes it more palatable for side quests, so I'm a little worried that it might have just more of that.
Yeah.
But part of me is kind of hoping that it's just like a reskinned version of Final Fantasy 15. I think that would be funny.
And that's the thing. A lot of people are guessing. Like, I guess they're gonna implement, because when Tetsuya was doing versus 13 was going to be an open world esque game. It'll still be guided, but I remember when they showed a trailer for versus 13, he was in Noctis was in an open world map. He was walking around, and I think he was fighting a mech at one point. And then a lot of that was adapted to when Tabata got the project. He just basically upped the shaders and changed the designs and stuff like that. But a lot of those open world esque moments was from when Tetsuya had it. So could he possibly go that route? I mean, granted, they're using the Unreal Engine, and the Unreal Engine doesn't. I know Lost Odyssey was made with the Unreal Engine, but to mixed reaction, because there's a lot of frame rate issues and stuff like that. I can't really think of any other open world RPGs.
I can't think of that many Japanese games that use Unreal Engine.
Right. I mean,
off the top of my head.
So
it seems like just a very Western design.
Right. I mean, and like I said, it's when a lot of companies make RPGs, they either develop a engine themselves that can handle that workload, or they license an engine that can do it.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I feel like a lot of Japanese studios frequently use their own in-house tech. They don't license middleware.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of one of the reasons I think comparatively that Final Fantasy VII came out as soon as it did versus the other games is that they were using a licensed engine that was capable, that had all the bells and whistles already, so they didn't have to develop an engine, because I think that's the longest process in the development process. The Luminous engine, well, it was Crystal Tools first, and then it became Luminous Engine. I think really hampered the development of Final Fantasy 13, 14, and versus 13/15.
Ruined 14. Yeah, because 14 was on the same engine as 13, right?
Yeah.
And then didn't work out so well the first time around.
And then they had to revamp Crystal Tools to Luminous, and even then, Luminous is still buggy I mean, it looks beautiful. That's the thing about Luminous Engine, it does look beautiful. When they showed
so does Episode 7 Remake.
Yeah,
I mean I played episode Duska of 15, but I mean 7 it's hard to again, I'm being reductive, but 7 has better graphics than 15, right?
But I think one of the reasons, and I think that's why I'm curious to see what direction they take the second one, if they embrace the open world aspect of,
because of the open world.
Yeah, they use Unreal Engine, but at the same time, even though you had freedom to move to certain locations to do side quests and whatever, it's still a guided experience. It was still a guided experience to where you can put detail. And I think that's what the reason why they said it was 2 disc, because they didn't repeat any assets. Not necessarily the fact that it had a bunch of cutscenes, because that's one of the things, the go-to reasons you think, oh, this thing is however gigs, is like, oh, it has so much FMVs that it took up a whole bunch of space.
It's like 85. I have the digital version. I don't have the physical version.
Right.
But it's like 85 gigs.
Yeah,
something.
the first disc is 100 gigs.
Wait, so it's bigger on if you have the disc version?
Yeah, it's 100 gigs because the first one loads the assets, and the second one you use to play the game.
Oh, okay. It's just easier to go digital at this point.
Yeah,
but I know you want that.
I had to. Well, let me pick up.
If it's not, whether it is or isn't a steelbook, you want that case. I
yeah.
understand.
It is a steel. There's a steelbook in it, but I find myself keeping it in this case.
This box looks like my Metal Gear Solid 4 special edition case.
So yeah, it does come with it. The funny thing is, it comes with the original case. We had the game, come on. And you can take it out and then you put it in here. I don't know.
Come on.
Yeah, I thought it would come like this, but the only, I guess the drawback to having this, because I have the steelbook for both 12 and 15, but they have a slipcase within. But this doesn't have a slipcase, and basically the back is where you have the title, because it opens this way. So the front is here. The Sephiroth is the front, and the back is where you have the title. So it's like, it would have been cool if the title was here. But or if it had a slipcase kind of like that where I could put it together. So, but because of that, I guess I just love looking at this big box, beautiful box. So I kept it in.
I mean,
here.
It's cool. I mean, you have it in the background of your videos. I've got a wall. I've got posters like all over every inch of this room except for where the camera is pointing right now.
But yeah, it's pretty cool, and it comes with the soundtrack too. Not all the songs are in there; it's just basically the ones that you know from the original, but the remastered version of that. It doesn't come with like, it doesn't have One Winged Angel, the version that is in the game. It doesn't even have the original One Winged Angel in there.
I can see that, I suppose, for being like a spoiler reason, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're gonna come out with a soundtrack afterwards,
so they can sell you more shit later.
Yeah. So these are just the, I guess.
I love the art. I hate the consumer part.
Yeah.
I much prefer the term customer.
Yeah.
Like, I will buy what I choose to buy. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's deep dive into the ending of this game. What this ending of this game makes you realize is this is technically a pseudo sequel to the OG.
It's definitely a sequel because Sephiroth. I think there's debate as to when it's Sephiroth from from Final Fantasy VII, and when it's Sephiroth post Advent Children. I will never be a memory. When it's that Sephiroth, because he appears. I think that he maybe by being defeated by Cloud, he enters the live stream and finds a way to kind of use the live stream to transcend time and communicate with his past self.
Yeah.
And so he's able to be like, "Hey, Sephiroth from the past, you know how you're gonna talk to Cloud? Like maybe this time instead of doing that, do this."
Yeah, I mean So the new elements to this game is obviously the whispers or arbiters of fears, arbiters of fate, right? But if you play the game again, and it's not only Sephiroth that's fully aware of the future or the original game, at times you realize that Aerith is kind of aware as well. Like she may not be fully aware. Maybe not. It's nothing concrete that says she's fully aware of every detail, but there's evidence pointing to the fact that she is at least aware of key details in the story.
I think the idea is that Sephiroth knows from the jump. He knows from the start.
Yeah.
And Aerith gets hints of that early on,
Mm-hmm.
like even very early with Cloud,
Mm-hmm.
when they're hanging out with the Whispers,
Right.
getting out of the church. He's like, "What are those things?" And she goes, "I think maybe they're." And
And
he's
then
like,
she didn't say
"What?" And
anything.
she's like,
Yeah.
Never mind. I don't know."
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's like she Sephiroth has a head start on her,
Mm-hmm.
but by the end of the game,
She's on
he
par.
knows.
She's on par.
Yeah.
But one of the things that a lot of people who dislike the plot ghosts, as they call them, or even dislike the ending, and one of the major things, other than the fact they said if they wanted to change things, why did it need the plot ghost, whatever. But they're like, okay, so understanding the plot ghosts on why are they there all of a sudden, uh, you know, you know, you know, if this is a game that's battling the things that happened in the OG, you know, why have they appeared in this game and not originally? And I believe it's because the moment you see Sephiroth is a time you never saw him in the original. Already a butterfly effect is initiated, because if you remember in the original game, how the Aerith and Cloud meet is, Cloud immediately separates from the crew and then meets Aerith, right? Sephiroth intervening at the time he did, taking him off course, right? Would have, if the ghost didn't intervene, given time for Aerith to go from point A where she was going to going back home, and they would have missed each other.
And that's exactly why Sephiroth is he doesn't actually want Cloud to do anything in particular.
Yeah,
He just wants to stall him so that he doesn't cross paths
yeah,
with Aerith.
yeah,
And that's when he realizes. That's when Sephiroth is like, "Oh, the Whispers are working against me."
yeah,
Um, because they're holding on to Aerith. Cloud only sees her because they're kind of holding her in place so that he can meet her.
yeah, yep. I was describing what this remake was to my cousin, and I used Lion King as an example. In that you had the Lion King, the original animation, and then you had the remake that just came out last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying basically what the this remake is as if Lion King started and you get the famous Circle of Life opening, and then the moment you see Scar is fully aware of what happened to him in the original movie and is actively working to prevent what happened to him in that movie. And there are elements in the remake that are trying to let the original film happen the way it happened originally. And it's this big battle that's going on. So yeah, you will see your famous scenes in from The Lion King, but you'll notice that while those scenes are happening, there are these ghosts that are flowing around and get in, and then you'll those elements are just trying to get Lion King the way you remembered it from 1994. And the thing about it is, while I was playing the game, I figured that that's what they were way earlier before they explained it to me. And I remember the moment too.
Was it in the church?
Yes.
Was it when you try to explore and you go to a hallway and Aerith's like, I don't think they want us to go that way.
No, it's
Okay,
it's
that was
it's
it for me.
it was the balcony.
Okay.
When
Oh, and she almost falls.
Yeah, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
because they saved her, right? And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, so they're not evil, they're not malevolent,
But
and
she's just not supposed to fall down there.
yeah, and I was
Not yet.
I was like, oh wait, so they're saving her. Interesting. And then I think it was when it really hit me over the head that these are basically trying to allow the they're trying to make sure that the original game happens is when Sector 7 falls and Wedge dies. Like you see the ghost circling around and keeping him in place, and he dies. I was like, holy shit. And and the thing about it, right? I at the time I thought it was just I'm putting on tinfoil hat now, right? Because I said to my friend, because I was online with him, I was playing the game, and I said to him, like, wait a second, and part of me believes that this wouldn't happen because it was just out there. It was, to me, it was too out there as a concept. Like, would they really do that with this game? And I was saying to him, wait a minute. What if the original game happened, and this is a universe where these ghosts are trying to make the original game happen? Like, and then he was like, at first he was like, I don't know. And then I guess he got further to me. I was like, Mark, I think you're probably right. And I was like, when I found out, I was like, holy shit, are they going that way? Then I still was not prepared for that ending. And I guess we'll talk about the ending now. So basically, Sephiroth from whatever era, whether he's from Advent Children or if he's the Sephiroth because you could essentially say he's the Sephiroth that gets defeated at the end of Final Fantasy VII. So from any point, from the time he gets defeated going forward to whether it's Advent Children or any time in between, it's basically a Sephiroth that's fully aware of the OG Final Fantasy VII. So then, what the ending? I guess first of all, you don't fight in the original. You don't fight Sephiroth there. Yeah. So that's when, and I guess that's another weakness I would say. Not for OG players, but like another weakness would be for brand new players. I think it doesn't really do enough. It's like you're introducing Darth Vader, but you don't really know anything about Darth Vader. Well, technically, the first Star Wars movie, you don't really know that much.
There's so much going on. I would bet that there was more foreshadowing to that.
Right.
In Shinra HQ, because Shinra HQ is long.
Yeah.
It's like 5 or 6 hours from like going in there to the end, and I took the stairs.
Oh, I took the elevator because I heard it was more cutscenes, so I took.
Okay, I'm gonna take the elevator next time.
Yeah.
But you should take the stairs the next time. It's very funny.
I mean, for my third playthrough, I'll take the stairs because I do want to preserve.
Just make a separate save and then load it up again.
No, I guess yes, I could do it that way, but like just for the purpose of the movie, I get. Oh, real quick, before I forget. So, what scene did you get? Because the first time I played it, I got the whole Tifa consoling scene.
Oh yeah, I got Tifa as well.
And because I did see the other scenes on YouTube.
I haven't seen it yet, but I know that Aerith's very far out.
Yeah, so I decided to keep the Tifa scene because I like that one. I think it was it is more emotional, and it really coming off of the fact that what happens to Sector 7, it really plays into it more than this whole metaphysical, is she there or not, is this a dream or not, situation.
It's like, I mean, I think that's the right call because, the character development is more important than the foreshadowing in that case.
Yeah,
But I bet that there was more foreshadowing of Sephiroth and the ending in Shinra HQ.
Right.
Before the ending, but I think that they probably were like,
I mean,
I don't want to lay it down too hard because it's already laid down really hard because during that whole sequence, that whole hours-long sequence, you're just like, this isn't right. What's happening here? And then, Barrett gets stabbed, and I'm like, no! What? Yeah. No! What's happening? And it's like, he's better, and I'm like, oh, well, that's a cop-out. But also, what?
Yeah. I mean, I guess...
But also, good thing they didn't kill the black guy in the first act, because that'd be racist. And, like, Barrett's a lot. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's like, he's just a lot. And I'm like, I don't like this that much sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're a little bit too much of a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like they saw one episode of the A-Team and it's just like, I get black people now.
And yeah, I guess what really is uh like I said, with the whole Sephiroth being Sephiroth from a future timeline, it doesn't really necessarily sell the idea of who Sephiroth is to new people. Even though I would say like there are still elements enough to for new noobs to grab onto. Like it does mention like he was a soldier when he talked to Aerith. Like, do you know who Sephiroth is? And it's like, oh, the war hero who died 5 years ago. Blah blah blah. And so you do get the sense that Sephiroth is not only tied to Cloud in some way we don't know. Well, if you didn't play the original, you don't know, but also you get the sense that he was a soldier and he probably was the best soldier. So I think they did that at least. But like I said, the character, if you're brand new to the series, goes pretty much off the rails. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I think if you're brand new to the series, you just kind of have to accept that.
yeah,
Well, I guess we'll be learning more about him in the next one.
right. So then, the first thing that happens that makes you go, whoa, they're about to really change stuff now. Aerith talks about, she opens the portal and she says they ask what lies behind the other side. Well, it's freedom, terrifying freedom. Not only will it change our destiny or future or something, but it could possibly change us as well. And that's why she was scared to let Cloud in. But they went through, and the first group of enemies they fight is the Whispers, but three specific looking Whispers. Now, here's where a lot of people have two different speculations on who those three are. So I think because when you do assess on them, it says they're from the future timeline who have come to stop. And whether you go on the one with the sword, it says he's from the future and he uses a sword to fight against fate. People who are trying to stop fate. You go on the gun, he uses the gun, blah blah blah, and fist. So right away you're thinking, oh, one represents Barrett, one represents Tifa, and one represents Cloud. But the problem is, well, not only I think if they were going that route, why wouldn't they add a fourth to represent Aerith? Because she's still a part. I mean, you could say, oh, in that future timeline that they're from, she's dead, so Aerith wouldn't come back to whatever. So that could be the possible excuse. But the person who uses a gun in this one has two guns, not one.
Doesn't have a gun arm.
Yeah, it's two guns. The person who uses the fist has a gauntlet on one arm, and the person who uses a sword doesn't have a big sword. I mean, it's relatively big, but not So the other end of the spectrum of fans who are speculating who those three are Kadaj, Yazu, and Luz. Yes.
The Sephiroth remnants from
Advent Children. And the mere fact that at one point they come together to form what? Bahamut, who is Kadaj summons in Advent Children. And again, it's a game that was directed by the same director as that movie, so why wouldn't he want to tap into that, right?
And it's very it's there's a lot of different theories as to why it would be them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like actually them or some kind of representation of them,
right,
or something that's even holding back Sephiroth. Like it could, like I think that it's Sephiroth using those forms from his own subconscious,
right?
Because that's like the biggest trick that he plays on them is thinking that in order to that they think. And they say during that whole sequence that they have to avoid the bad ending.
Yes,
and they talk about the bad ending,
and that's another sort of big revelation, and it makes you think: is this what the creators think of Final Fantasy VII? Is that what they're trying to say? Or, like, even if they're not thinking that, right? Is that how we're supposed to look at Final Fantasy VII, the original, as a bad ending, right? Yeah, granted, in the end of that game, you beat Sephiroth. But what happens at the end, right? It's like Midgar is almost destroyed, but yes, it's saved. Yes, it's saved. And then 300 years later, is it three? I think 300 years later, and they're showing,
That'd be like 500.
yeah, one of those numbers.
Red 13 is very old.
Yeah, Red 13 is there with his cubs, and they go up in the hill, and it overlook Midgar. Midgar is overtaken by plant life, and I think Nojima at some years back did confirm.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
He said it in an interview.
yeah,
That world of Final Fantasy VII from the future has no humans.
humans.
But I also am like,
But then,
I don't care what he said.
I mean, he's a scenario writer in this one, and when the flash forward to that scene happens, Red 13 himself says, "This is the terrible future that awaits us if we fail here," or "This is the future that awaits us if we fail
true.
here."
He says that, but I think it's all a trick from Sephiroth.
Right.
I think Sephiroth is tricking all of them.
And that's the thing. I guess okay, that's I think maybe this is where future installments of the game could answer the question. Is that when they're seeing these flashings, granted, some of these scenes are hard to like. You could see why Cloud wouldn't want the scene that he sees.
Yeah, because
happen.
Sephiroth implanted the remnants with those specific memories, so that when they'd be defeated, that's what they would see.
And then
because Sephiroth comes from a timeline, the future, where he loses.
Right. But then that brings to my other question, which I think this game doesn't make super clear. Are the Whispers either A, working for, or B, being manipulated, or C, working against Sephiroth? Like, which one is it? Are they working for, or being...
they look the way they look. I know that they're working against Sephiroth.
Right. Because at the moment, you see they're working against... And I think he's the catalyst of why they first appeared in the first place.
Yes.
But then at the point of once they go through the portal, are they still working against him at that point?
I believe so. I believe they are. I believe that they have I think the Whispers still have a way to communicate. There could be some kind of scientific reason for the Whispers.
Mm-hmm.
They could be not so much just the live stream trying to preserve things the way that they are.
Right.
They could be, an active force being sent back in direct opposition to Sephiroth's activity in the past.
Right.
Because, they could even be from the busted future. They could be from the future that Sephiroth creates.
Right.
By changing destiny. Because I don't think that the Final Fantasy VII Remake heroes create their own destiny by defeating those fates.
Right.
I think they just change destiny to the one that Sephiroth created for himself.
Right.
So I think Sephiroth, who has lost in the future, goes back to change the rules, to change destiny, not so that the characters have freedom, but so that he can fulfill his destiny.
Yeah. It's funny, right? So you get to the point where you're fighting Sephiroth. You fight him, you do the whole spiel, whatever, and then you get to the edge of creation. And one of the things Sephiroth says is, "Lend me your energy," or "Lend me your," basically it's my join me moment. Let's change destiny together. It makes you think, okay, why does he need Cloud that much? Like, why not just off Cloud? Like, does he need Cloud for something specific? That's one of the things I really want to find out. Hopefully they don't skirt over that idea and forgot that they even brought that up in the first place, because that's something easy to do, especially when you're doing epic storytelling. You can forget certain small details.
I think that almost every line of dialogue in this game every concept is going to pay off in the future.
Yeah.
But that line specifically,
yeah,
I think it's just as simple as reverse psychology.
Right.
That he's saying, "Oh, join me, because I totally need you right now."
Well,
and then of course, because he knows that Cloud's going to fight back. But that's exactly what he wanted to do in the first place.
But one of my speculation as well as to why that moment happens is that I believe that moment, that joining, will happen maybe in the second installment, where it's a moment where Cloud is at his lowest and needs something to happen. Maybe I know I guess we're bringing elements of second game up earlier, but what if the fact that Aerith's death is foreshadowed even more than it did, to the point where now everyone knows that she's going to die, like she's supposed to die at that moment. What would every other character, what would Barrett, what would Tifa, what would Cloud, and Red, now that he's a part of the crew and he got to know her a little bit, what would they want to do in order to prevent that from happening?
Yeah, and it's going to be, what do they want to do and what are they going to have to do?
Yeah, right?
You know what this is?
This
is The Last Temptation of Christ.
Right.
You know that movie?
I didn't see that movie, but
it is a great movie that was controversial for no reason. It's a great movie. And it's about Jesus on the cross being given the chance by Satan to come down from the cross and get married and have kids and have a great time. And like the whole final act of that movie is set in like a fraction of a second in Jesus's mind, when he's like, man, that would be so great. Right. And so he comes down from the cross. He's like, nah, Satan, you're fine. Don't worry about it. And he gets married and he has kids. And then like the whole world is crumbling around him. And he's like, oh, right. That's why I can't do this. And then he blinks and he's back on the cross and he dies.
Right.
And I think that is the idea that we're going to get to. It's going to be the last temptation of Aerith. And they're going to do whatever they can to save her. And they might even save her in that scene.
Right. But
things are going to get so... And maybe other people will die instead. Maybe someone will die instead of her. But things are going to go so off the rails, and not in a good way, not in like, oh my God, this is so cool now. Yeah. Maybe it'll start that way.
Right.
But then they'll be like, oh no, this is really, really bad. Oh my God, the forces of Sephiroth are they've risen and are overwhelming us, and Shinra's getting everything they want, and everyone's getting killed, and Marlene's dead, and we're going to see Marlene die in Barrett's arms. And then they're going to go, all right, I think that we were wrong, and Tifa's going to, Aerith's going to have to bite the big one. And then it's going to snap back like a rubber band through space-time. Yeah. And she's going to get stabbed on that altar, and they're going to resume.
Oh, yeah, I guess that would be a cool mechanic to introduce, right? To the people who are like, oh, so is this a whole thing to allow Aerith to live? And right. I guess one of the cool things to do is you get to that point where Aerith dies. She doesn't die. You may play like 2 or 3 hours after, realizing shit is going bad, and then the real end comes to where it's either a dream sequence or something like that, or alternate timeline, or some futuristic look, and then snap back and oh no,
it could be a whole game. It could be a whole entry in the game of they save Aerith on that altar and everything goes wrong, because fans have wanted to save Aerith for 23 years.
Right.
They've wanted to save her, and they're gonna get their chance, and they're gonna realize that if they do, everything is gonna go.
The only reason I wouldn't necessarily
and they're gonna get to the end of that game. They're gonna play a game's gonna end. Part 2 or 3. Part 2. Let's just be generous to myself and say part 2 is gonna end with them saving Aerith. And then part 3 is going to be the most dour, negative, sad game. It's like they're gonna make people throw themselves out of windows. It's gonna be so sad. And at the very end of that game, Aerith is gonna do what Sephiroth does at the beginning of part 1, and she's gonna send a message back in time and be like, hey, I gotta freaking die right now, even if Cloud has to do it himself. And the end of that game is gonna be Cloud in Sephiroth's role, stabbing Aerith through the heart, and she dies. And then the next part is going to be that whole thing but in the proper timeline.
Right, right, right. I mean, here's the thing. That sounds cool. That sounds cool. Problem one with that is, yes, granted, this game was made and ended the way with in regards to what the fans may think or not. They did it. They were like, "Fuck this, we're doing this," right? But I think there's just certain. It's still a business, right? Square Enix is still, they make art, I guess, but they still make product. And at a point, they realized they already pushed certain people, certain members of the Final Fantasy community, pushed them to a certain limit already with this game,
They
right?
should push them right off the fucking cliff.
Right? It's to then end the next installment with you saving Earth, which is what people were already afraid of, right? You have people who were like, "Oh, this is exciting." They would be excited to actually see what would happen if Aerith lives, but then you still have people who are the force the plot ghosts of this game, which is very sacred to them that Aerith dies, right? So to then say, oh, you have to wait a next game to see the result of this, I think might be pushing it, which is why my suggestion is you save her in this game, you see the results of what happens if you save her, and then end this game with her dying, realizing that she has to die, right?
Say the same idea, just without the 2 to 3 year
Years
delay.
wait. So basically,
Yeah.
you get the audience to experience both in the same game. Experience
Right.
her living, realizing, yeah, that might not be that might be a little bit too shitty. All right. I guess I have to accept her death. Basically, it's what they weren't allowed to do in 7, the original, where when she dies, they mourned her because it was a sudden death, like to the point where they were trying to revive her, right? They were trying to
Yeah.
figure out ways to revive her. They weren't really fully invested in Aerith being dead, right? With this game, it could be a catharsis on the part of people who are going to see her die, in that they're fully prepared for her death now. In that, like, yes, I guess she has to die. Goodbye, Aerith. And you might. The characters themselves may even get that chance, because I think when she dies in the original, they basically stand around her and basically have to say goodbye to her, but she's already gone.
I don't remember exactly how that plays out.
I did see it recently, and it's based on who is in your party at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That you
They have
see,
specific lines for her.
yeah, like no, like she's dead. She's like lying down dead, and Cloud is there, and your party members are there, and then they're having basically each of them walk up to her, and say a line, and then walk off before Cloud, goes up to her and I guess says something. I think he says
Buries her
something,
at sea.
and then he walks and then bears at sea. I believe. Well, I guess the speculation on my part is that uh, because the characters will know she's going to die, and whether they save her at one point and then have to allow her to die again, they will get to say goodbye to her in this game before she dies. I think that's one of the changes that'll happen. Um,
I suppose I just, a thing that I don't want them to indulge in too much is kind of like that prolonged. You know, my least favorite scene in this game already is not Wedge, Biggs dying,
yeah.
where he's like, "Oh, I'm dying, and I'm dead. Oh wait, I have an orphanage.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I'm dead.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
now I'm dead. Okay,
Yeah.
it's literally that scene from Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, technically, he's not dead anymore. But
I know, I know, but that's
Yeah.
the whole fate thing,
Yeah.
and that's a whole other thing that we can get to in a second.
Yeah.
But then, like, not only is that scene terrible, but then, like, 2 minutes later, you do it again with Jesse. It's like, oh, come on.
I mean, I guess, and it's like the double-edged sword, right? You
want to have that time,
'cause
but
not
and
only
the whole
that,
point,
in the original, right? Because you barely know who the three fucking people are, but then they die instantly, right? Wedge falls off, he dies. You don't even get to say anything. I think, if I don't remember correctly, you don't really get to say anything to the other two. You just die.
They have a couple of lines.
Yeah, but but they die like pretty much right away too.
Which is what happens when people die.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone gets to give a goodbye speech.
So basically, you have a whole chapter 4 that happens in this game that has you really bonding with these characters, and I think that's when they kind of like said, all right, I guess we need to give them a little bit more moments in this, which is why I believe the whole Aerith thing too is gonna play similarly with along the lines of this, in that the characters themselves would get to say a little bit more of a goodbye to Aerith before she dies, versus just Sephiroth just Masamuing her her straight in the back. Like,
yeah, I mean, they're gonna get that opportunity, but then, whether it's, a few hours later in game or a whole other game later in game, it's still, they're gonna be like, oh my god, there was still so much I had to say, because you never have enough time to say all the stuff you want to say to someone.
Yeah.
They're dying, and that's kind of the whole that the reaction after Aerith died in 1997 of years of urban legends of how to bring her back. That is exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
Because that's grief. That is genuine grief. That's how that works in real life.
Yeah.
Those stages of depression or whatever. Stages of grief. 5 stages, 7 stages. What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never been sad, so I don't know what that is. But that, I think that they're gonna find a way to go through that thing that people went through in real life, to do that in the game. Because they're gonna bargain. They're gonna save her, because we're already going through the stages. We're in that stage right now.
That's why I believe they're gonna know that she's gonna die in the beginning, because I believe it'll be an interesting story to deal with that 5 stages before she even dies. Right? It's like you're knowing her outcome, and they're doing the bargaining thing. They're doing the denial thing, because that's one of the things. Like, oh, we're not about to let you die. Doing the bargaining thing, which maybe it could be an actual bargaining, or if you want to do it like an emotional bargaining, like bargaining with Sephiroth is like, okay, if we make a deal, can we save her, or an emotional bargaining was like, okay, Aerith, don't go to the Temple of Ancients, and we'll do whatever it takes to save the planet, whatever. Just basically going through the rest of the grief, and then to the point of the end of the game to acceptance when she's really has to die. You know what I mean? That would be an interesting.
Last temptation of Aerith. I'm calling it now.
Right.
That's how it's going down.
But
so much of this entire saga is going to be set in a split second in Aerith's mind when she thinks, "What if I can defy my fate?" In a world where they can defy their fate, where they can change things. Yeah. And she's going to go, this is a thing that I can change, but if I do, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, so are we to take it that the Whispers are destroyed at this point? Is that what the whole fact that they defeated the Whispers?
I think the Whispers are down but not out. Right. I think that there's an origin of the Whispers that doesn't need necessarily, but that can be explained.
Right.
I think that it's fine to say they're just agents of fate, and they look like they do because whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that they could even be Aerith herself from the future in which she is dead.
I mean, going back to Kingdom Hearts, I mean, they did explain, just to, I guess, it's Tetsuya. He did explain who the nobodies are, and whatever other elements.
Yeah.
It was explained, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He for sure. Nothing is in his games just like to be a plot
Yeah,
even
like
if it to be a plot device, even if it seems like that, even if it seems like that for like 100 hours of games,
mm-hmm.
games plural,
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything without a reason.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there is stuff in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 that still hasn't paid off,
Right.
but that we know for a fact
Mm-hmm.
that if he gets to continue doing what he is doing,
Yeah.
and Square Enix has the faith in him to allow him to continue doing what he's doing, I don't think that they are going to go to Tetsuya Nomura and say, "Oh, well, some of the fans on whatever Chan are like, we don't like this, so you're going to need to change it." I don't think that they're going to do that to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if they did, he would quit.
He would quit. Yeah. Yeah.
He would be like, fuck you.
Yeah. So then another big element that is introduced in this game that is a mind fuck.
There ain't no getting off this train till we reach the end of the station, baby.
Is
That's Tetsuya Nomura.
Is the fact that Zack Fair lives at the end. So
And we have the same stylist. Just saying.
Right. So then the question is, A, is that a separate timeline? And if it is, will it be a separate timeline going forward?
I've seen people talk about how that's a separate timeline. I don't think it's a separate timeline. I think that it is the time. I think it's the timeline that Final Fantasy VII Remake is set in. I think that change just happened then.
Well, because they're going by the beat. They're going by the dog, the stamp, right? The stamp changes. The stamp you see during the Zack fight is a different breed.
It's true.
So they basically are just saying based on that it's a separate timeline. But you could just as easily say, hey, once the fate thing happens and Zack, in that version of the time where Zack lives, transitioned into the timeline that our heroes in the remake are living in, and basically the time is going to change around them. The dog is going to look different. Heck, someone brought this up, which has been super crazy. What if they go to Golden Saucer and see Jesse, and Jesse doesn't remember them?
Oh yeah, I saw that on Easy Allies.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
That's
the
four only levels of Spoilercast I listen to, because they are the only people on the internet who I like.
Yeah.
Present company.
Yeah. the four levels from Maximilian Dude, because I watch this guy a lot. You know what I'm saying? So the 4 levels, and some of them was like, holy shit, what if that is true?
I mean, why establish that she wanted to be an actor in Golden Saucer again? Like, every line, every plot, every character who's in this game, they're not there without reason.
Yeah, like Roach, who just shows up.
Roach is gonna be back.
He's gonna come back.
The easy answer, the easy thing to go is, they put Roach in there so he can show up during the fight, on the freeway.
Yeah.
And they want you to think that.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't show up at all.
Yeah.
They don't mention him. And that's because they're saving him.
Yep.
Because he's gonna show up when you least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
He might show up. He might not even show up in part 2. He might show up to do, basically a repeat of his part 1 appearance.
Right.
But maybe it'll be in part 5. Maybe it'll be in the last part 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
This thing could be 7 games for all we know.
Yeah. And
anyone who says they know, they don't know.
Yeah.
Because not even Square Enix knows. That was a story that I wrote today. It's probably already published.
Right.
Is that they don't know how many parts it's going to be.
Yeah. So the Ultimania came out. Is that what it's called? Ultimania. I'm trying. Yeah. Okay. Good. Came out, and and we're gonna discuss some of those details as well.
Kitase said like, people are saying that it's going to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they don't know. They're saying it, but they don't know.
I mean,
they know?
Here's the thing. It's
obviously not 1 disc per game.
Even though he's putting all these red herrings out there, I think it's gonna be a trilogy. Like, to push this thing past more than 3 is
7.
It's pushing
7 parts.
That's
I don't think
7. Unless they
7 parts.
The only time I would accept a 7-part series is if you're gonna come out with a game at least once a year. I'll give you
It could
I'll
be.
give you twice. I'll give you even though 2 years is pushing it between installment, pushing
I
it.
think that it could be every other year. I think some games could be. I think it could be every other year. Part
Because
of me really wants to say every year.
uh-huh.
Part of me really wants to say they could do 20 hours every year.
Because
But
Tetsuya even teased that the second one might be even shorter than the Midgar section.
yeah, that was actually the headline.
Yeah.
Like it might be shorter, which is why I'm like 7 games, baby. Final Fantasy 7, 7 games, boom, writes itself.
I mean that's what I
and
said.
parts 4 and 5 are subtitled "The Last Temptation of Aerith."
That's another interesting thing
to be real. Like half of that game is disc 1.
Yeah, that's another thing. The title, right? Title Final Fantasy Remake. I believe the remake this is on some Kojima shit right now. This is something Kojima would definitely do in his video games. Like I mean, like Solid had so many meanings. Metal Gear Solid, one he said it was like because it was the first 3D game, so it was like okay, the title Solid. Solid also is the title of the main character. But it's like I believe remake narratively meant one remaking sort of the timeline, and this is why this probably will be the only game that has that subtitle remake.
I'm glad you said that because I feel the exact same way. I see it on like TV tropes and like other forums. They're still calling it like episode 1. Oh, this is episode 1. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm being salty today.
Yeah.
I try to keep it clean, but like I think it's called remake, and I don't think that the next one will be called Remake Part 2. I think it could be like rebirth, rebuild. I think that they could include the RE just for like a.
I believe whether the second one is called Rebirth or something, there's going to be at least one installment that's going to be called Reunion. Could be the final.
Remake, Rebirth, Reunion, The Last Temptation of Aerith Part 1, The Last Temptation of Aerith Part 2, then rebuild of Evangelion. Never.
So
my brother really likes it.
The new Evangelion or
all of it. He's seen all of it.
Okay, I haven't seen any of them, but I have them. Well, Netflix has the old ones. I have the new ones.
I've got the first 3 movies on DVD. Although they might not even be here. They might be in Ukraine. Jason might have taken them with him.
Yeah.
But like I'm waiting for the 4th one. I mean, I'm in because of Shin Godzilla.
Oh, right.
Better than any of the American Godzilla movies. But that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. So all right. So, what are we to think of Zack and what role he'll play in the future installments?
This is all speculation because again, anyone who thinks they know,
they don't know.
They don't know. But like, I think right now that when they changed Destiny, they didn't just open up Destiny for themselves. They changed everything. I don't think that Stamp showing up as a different breed. I don't think that was saying that Zack's scene is set in a separate timeline. I think it's saying that like the timeline,
like everything from, because I guess to look at it from this perspective, right, is when the fates were surrounding Midgar in the current timeline or the present, you go to the past, they were basically doing the same thing. So I think from at any period in time, the fates were surrounding Midgar, and because they destroyed Midgar at one point in time, it basically dominoed effect throughout time, and everything changed.
Time and space, like there's been no event that I think the Northern Crater could be somewhere else entirely.
I think it even changed time to when the ancients were around. Like something different may have happened. Genova itself could have experienced a sort of change, right? Like
and at some point, maybe not in part 2, maybe not in part 3, maybe not in the Last Temptation of Aerith Part 1 and 2, which are parts 4 and 5, but maybe in like part 6, they're gonna realize that what they have to do is bring the timeline back to the way it was. What was I watching was it a show or was it a movie or was it a game where the timeline gets knocked off course and they're like, oh, we have to do whatever we can to bring it as close as we can to the way it
I
was,
mean,
even though we're not going to be able to make it perfect.
there was so many.
I feel like it's a
Yeah.
common like,
Yeah. uh,
but I think that they're gonna have to be like, oh, they're gonna realize that the destiny that they removed from the equation
mhm.
is actually the only destiny in which they can win.
Yeah, I don't know if you said this earlier, but like, I get, I guess me saying it again, could it be the fact that they destroyed the fates and basically all timelines got so fucked up that it created the Sephiroth that is now back in time to, change shit? Like, could it be? Could that Sephiroth be as a result of what they did to fate? You know what I mean?
It could be. I think that Sephiroth could be kind of like a reverse Flash from the Arrowverse shows,
Right.
where he's from a timeline that doesn't exist anymore,
Right.
and so he's kind of like a rogue agent who can just do whatever he wants,
Mm-hmm.
who is not bound by the rules of time and space
Right.
in ways that other characters are. And like once they realize that, they're going to be like, oh, we need to restore the timeline because that's the only way to keep him from being literally like a god.
So here's another question, right? So
And again, everything entirely speculative.
right.
Nobody knows. Anyone who thinks they know, they don't know.
So the question, another interesting tidbit, right? Where Aerith basically says, if we go through here, we may even ourselves maybe even change, right? Like, yes, the last few frames of the game, they look relatively the same in terms of personality, right? But what if while the second one is going on, things are changing around them? Like for instance, what if the fact that Zack is alive hasn't hit this current Cloud yet?
Yeah, definitely.
Until
If Cloud knows that Zack is actually alive, then Cloud will be different.
yes, exactly.
I think that there's a bunch of different ways that they could handle that,
Mm-hmm.
from having Zack and Cloud be themselves the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
Zack the way he is, because even because Zack's like a super happy dude.
Right.
In Crisis Core, he is not like angsty Cloud
Right.
from the first act of 7. Cloud is like that because he doesn't have a personality.
Yeah.
And he thinks and he's covering for that by trying to be cool and aloof.
Yeah.
If Zack meets him and it's just like, "Hey, Cloud, turn that frown upside down,"
Mm-hmm.
and Cloud's just like, "Oh shit,
Mm-hmm.
what is happening right now?" I know, and his mind's just gonna crack open like a walnut.
Right. So then, like I guess you could say that if you see him, it'll take time to basically catch up with him. It's like it'll be like, oh, you're alive.
Yeah, it's possible we could get the Cloud that we have at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We could get that Cloud a lot earlier.
Or a lot earlier.
Possible.
Yeah. So then, okay. So not
agency Cloud.
So then, again, a benefit of recording the podcast at this moment when the Ultimania is out, like another quote we can mention, because now we're speculating a bunch about changes, but then was it Nomura or was it Katase who said this? One out of the two said Final Fantasy VII Remake going forward will pretty much be the same. We're not drastically changing things. It will be the same thing what we did with Final Fantasy VII Remake, in that, yes, it pretty much followed the story beats, but here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I even said it myself before this quote that, granted how this one ended, I believe it'll follow the same beats like it did with the remake. Like, I believe the game will start in calm, and as a matter of fact, you could the calm section could be the tutorial section for the second one, where you're playing as both Cloud and Sephiroth during that section.
And Tifa.
Right. And then basically you go through that whole story, and you realize it's a flashback, a story being told by Cloud to the rest of the folks. And then where did they go from there? I don't even remember but the major beats, visiting Cosmo Canyon, believe will still happen. I believe you'll still see the Nanaki backstory and him trying to, thinking his father left them or whatever, and then he realizes that his father sacrificed himself. The thing that I would say would be different, especially in the Cosmo Canyon, is what's his name? Budaga? What is his name?
Bugenhagen.
Bugenhagen, yeah.
He's the one person who, like, if there's any kind of like cosmic shit going down,
Yeah, he'll know.
then he would be the one to know. He's like the character in any movie who, like, the heroes go to him and they're like, dude, something's going horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And he'll go, and he'll be like, come with me, and there'll be a big stack of books, a big bookshelf, and he'll go, this one. And then he'll be like, oh, this is what's happening, blah, 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 blah. He's the exposition guy. He's the guy who knows the planet. He's the guy who knows everything that there is to know about the life stream. He would know, oh, you've seen the whispers? Well, they have only been encountered once before in history. And he'll be like, yeah, they were encountered in the northern field, the northern snowfield, apparently, and where people have seen a huge crater, which is crazy because the crater's normally on top of the Chocobo Ranch, or whatever, because there's another crater also in Lucrezia's cave,
right? Yeah,
is in a crater, stuff's bashing up against this planet all the time.
I believe he would be the one to paint the picture of what this new timeline represents.
He is the avenue of cosmic storytelling in Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. And I do believe the Golden Saucer will happen, and Barrett's backstory will happen the same way, where he meets Dyne, and all of those major events, Juno Reactor, even Costa
del Sol with Hojo and his babes on the beach.
Yeah, so I mean,
weird.
Those things will happen, but I believe just like this game, where certain chapters introduce you to new elements in the story, it's gonna happen in this game as well. And maybe the end, again, just like how the end went off the rails in this one.
Yeah, it's not gonna go off the rails until the end of Part 3 when Aerith has her temptation. Yeah. I'm sticking to this.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm waiting for the statute of limitations to expire so I can just post the original trailer for Last Temptation of Christ with the subtitle Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I believe she still will die, and I mean, I know your theory.
Well, I believe she will die also.
Your theory still accounts for her death, but I don't believe she'll be. Even if they do the whole "let's save her" thing, like, and she does get saved at one point, I don't see them saving her death for too long.
Games.
Huh?
2 games.
And as for what they said, right? As for what they said, where they're like, okay, we could either do this thing 2 ways. We can actually, if we make the game longer, it'll take longer for it to come out, or we could just make shorter installments and come out quicker.
Do that. Shorter installments, come out quicker. 7 parts. I need to win this bet.
I believe. If I had to make a speculation, if it's more than 3, if they're doing more than 3, which, oh my god, I really don't want them to. I really don't.
7 parts.
I think it's gonna be 4.
Okay, is that your bet?
Yes.
7 parts.
That's okay. This bet is contingent upon if they made the decision to do more than 3. Right.
Oh, it's gonna be way more than 3.
Because they can do 3 and just say, hey, we'll just. Second one is going to take a little bit longer, because I don't even think they made that decision yet, have they?
I mean, if they only do 3, then like Cosmo Canyon's going to be like 2 teepees.
What do you mean?
Because they're just going to have to like race through there. And be
no. Meaning the 3 is contingent on the fact that if they want to make the next installments longer, is what I'm saying. Then, because like I said, they said we could split it up more. Because what they're doing, essentially, is they're splitting up the story beats, right? Midgar was his own section. Now, they could split up the time from the left to go to Calm to Aerith's death, they could split up in between those, or they could keep that chunk, right?
Mm. Oh yeah, I don't think Aerith's death is going to be at the end of part 2. It's going to be at the end of part 3.
That's what I'm saying.
There's so much game. Like if you play through Final Fantasy VII again, Disc 1 is more than half of that game.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, right? But we're. Oh, I mean, we can't. I guess we can't say what would be a perfect conclusion because really, they basically made up their own ending for this one to make it feel like a conclusion. So, and they could end pretty much anywhere and just add on their.
Yeah, 2 could end at the Gold Saucer, for all we know.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, even though they kind of added their ending, I could see the whole Midgar section was its own arc. You know, Shinra was set up as a bad guy. Shinra dies at the end, right? And then a new status quo is set up where Rufus is now the leader and he has his council. You know what I mean? So then you got to think, okay, so even though we all think Aerith's death is a good concluding point, what other point in between Calm and Aerith's death would be a good conclusion? I don't see the
Rocket Town, Wutai.
Okay, yes, that in itself, because the Wutai section happens before Aerith's death, right? Where they go back to Wutai.
The Wutai section is cool because it can happen anytime between getting the tiny Bronco and the end of the game.
Right.
Because it's entirely optional to go to Wutai.
Because that's another thing. Thank you for reminding me. That was another thing, element that was even explored further in the original. Not only is Wutai plays a bigger role, but their Avalanche, their cells in Avalanche as well. Which is funny enough, right? When I remember back in the days when I was make up stories and I would say, hey, what if I made a movie of Final Fantasy VII? One of the things I would probably explore, because I always thought about like, okay, so Avalanche is a group of terrorists. What if there's more, right? Like, what if there's more members, but because you're just introduced to just Barrett, Jesse, Tifa, Biggs, Wedge, what if there's more to them? And then when I saw this in that game, I was like, holy shit. Right?
Yeah, I definitely want to learn more. I think that Avalanche can play a huge part in Wutai. So they kind of are setting that up a little bit. They mentioned that Wutai is working with Avalanche one way or the other.
Yeah, so
and I think one of the weaker parts of the story in this is Barrett.
Right.
I think they don't drag him across the coals enough. They're kind of like, hey, Barrett, we believe that we killed a lot of innocent people, even though like we're technically innocent because Shinra did it, but we don't actually know that. And Barrett's like, oh well, it happens. Continue with the revolution.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, hey, Barrett, hey, maybe you should be held more accountable for these deaths, which no, technically are not entirely your fault, but you or any of the characters in the game, none of them know that.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, well, people get killed in war. Oh, well. It's like, hey, what if Marlene gets killed? Right. What happens then?
Yeah.
I want them to... And plus, Barrett, hey, you want to protect the planet? Before Mako, you were a coal miner. That's not better.
Yeah. I believe that part 2 will be in part 2. We'll get that backstory, the Dine stuff.
And I love the Dine stuff.
Yeah.
I that whole chapter is like, where Barrett goes rogue and like becomes like a killer. And like, you're like, what's going on with Barrett? He's like gone ape shit.
Well, wasn't part of the story was that a lot of people were dying, and they said someone with a gun arm did it, but it wasn't Barrett. It was Dine that did it. Yeah. So I mean, that would be an awesome element to sort of incorporate into the story. But going by what you bringing up Wutai, I believe, if they don't do Aerith's death for the second installment, I believe the main arc of the story will be continuing the Wutai. Will Wutai go to war with Shinra? Because someone mentioned too, because I didn't remember, like I said, there's certain elements I don't remember to this game. You do meet what's her name, the chick,
Yuffie.
You do meet Yuffie's dad, right, at some point?
Yeah. He's like the last boss
Boss,
in the
yeah.
Wu-Tai arc.
And was this
It's a relatively kind-spirited fight. Like they don't kill each other.
right? Was one of the elements, because someone said this and I was like, oh, I didn't remember if that was a plot point or not. That her father was more of a pacifist that doesn't really like he's more peaceful.
Um, yeah, there's a thing about, Yuffie is kind of, if I remember right, she's kind of ready, like, hey, why aren't we fighting? Why aren't we fighting Midgar?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, Yuffie, because they have a lot bigger guns than we do,
Mm-hmm.
and, we're like ninjas and we're really cool, but like, we can't go up against a guy with machine guns.
Mm-hmm.
Did you even see The Last Samurai? And she's like, no. Plus, those are samurai and we're ninja.
Yeah.
But well, it's kind of both because she's like a ninja and he's like a samurai.
So,
But
what
yeah.
if a story element that when you first get introduced to Yuffie is that Yuffie is on a mission to basically gather resources, whether it's hiring mercenaries or or other elements. I don't know, maybe more money to create technology enough to go up against Midgar. But like her whole mission is that she wants to go against her father, because basically Midgar right now is running a smear campaign that is just burying
Yeah.
Mutai in just
Mhm.
dirt, right? Like,
And that is why she is stealing materia in the original.
right,
To
to
Yeah,
sell, I guess, to sell or to keep to use.
either to keep and to use or to otherwise raise resources for
Yeah.
the prospective Wu-Tai war effort,
Yeah.
which she then abandons at the end of that arc in the story.
So that's I guess a way to go in terms of like, I guess increasing that plot line, since Wutai is basically a big deal now. You remember that time when you were walking with Jesse and the old lady sweeping is like, oh, is that Wutai? Let me go back in the back and get my gun. I busted a few Wutai asses back in the day. I can do it again. And the guy's like, yeah, ma'am, thank you for your service, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean that's like a thing about Final Fantasy VII that makes me feel like unless they're gonna go off the rails soon,
Mm-hmm.
like there's too much game
Mm-hmm.
for it to be 3 parts.
Yeah,
Even if they're
is.
50-hour parts, because
there
like
is.
a thing about 7 that is not the case in 8, 9, and 10
Mm-hmm.
is how episodic the story feels.
Right.
It's like Midgar is an episode. It's like the first episode of the original Final Fantasy VII,
Mm-hmm.
and then like there's the column episode with the Nibelheim flashback. There's like the actual Nibelheim episode where you go and you get Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Wu-Tai episode, which can be kind of folded in with recruiting Yuffie.
Right.
There's the Rocket Town episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the huge materia subplot, which is most of disc 2,
Mm-hmm.
where there's so many, like every
Yeah.
every town has an episode.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
I
And
mean,
if all of these towns are going to be in it, and like
Yeah.
they don't have to be huge cities like
Yeah.
Midgar, obviously, but
Yeah.
because even Midgar isn't a huge city in 7 Remake. You don't get, it's not like an open world city you get to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you get to like chapter 14 and you can go pretty much anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, I haven't covered a whole lot of ground in this game, have I?
Yeah. Like,
Um,
I just don't want them to, in the pursuit of putting out more games or making a game shorter or whatever philosophy they decide to adapt for this saga, I just don't want, like, okay, this game comes out, it's only like 3 locations. Unless you're saying these 3, they're gonna really expand these 3 locations.
they're still going to be 30 hours each.
Yeah.
And part of us, we want it to be 60 hours, 60 hours each. And that'd be cool.
That's the thing. I don't want it to be 60. I don't got time for that shit, man. I mean, I love Witcher. I really love The Witcher, but that fucking game was long, man. Like, the original campaign plus its 2 DLC, like, you really have to have time to play that game. So,
and my full playthrough of 7 Remake was for about 40 hours. 42.
Yeah, mine was 47. But you
Well,
know,
because I was using my pro strats.
yep. Uh, but I mean, I guess some of the hours might be on pause screen.
When you're on pause for more than a couple of minutes, the timer stops.
It does. Okay.
It's awesome because like I paused it and I went to go like make food or feed the cat or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I got back, I was like, timer's blacked out. Oh, and it's not moving. Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I just like going back to the length. I just hope, like I said, um, we're not getting like 2 or 3 locations. I do want I basically whatever they do with this, I want it to feel like Remake did, where it felt like its own story. Yes, by the end of it, they're on a journey and there's more to the story that um, you know. But I believe that they managed to end this in a way that it felt satisfying.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because the natural climax that's in our head
Yeah.
is Aerith dying.
Yeah.
So I think, and obviously that's not going to happen until the end of part 3, hence Last Temptation of Aerith is part 4 and 5. So I think what they're going to have to do for part 2's ending, and for the ending of several of the other 7 chapters, is have something with the new story.
Right.
With the new story that they are weaving, maybe have Zack be something that they go to here and there and have them reunite with him at some point near like the very end of part 2,
mm-hmm.
and that's when it goes off the rails and it's like, oh, why are we what's good, and then Cloud has his mental breakdown then,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 ends with Cloud actualized way earlier than he gets actualized in the original.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, we're gonna do stuff, but we're gonna do it better.
Yeah.
And we see how that backfires later on.
Yeah.
Or something like, the Whispers were sent back in time by Aerith from the future, who's dead and with the life stream, and they are just like representations of the life stream trying to bring
Mm-hmm.
a touch of destiny back to this world gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or something from that angle of the story, as opposed to the actual A to B story of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and another thing I believe that's fundamentally changed too, is that the fact that you fight Sephiroth at the end of this game, even if you do fight him at some point in the other games, especially for the second game, I don't believe you'll fight him again like as a boss, as the main boss. I think they'll come up with some representation of being sort of the final boss to defeat, because they can't jump to that well second time around, right?
Maybe. I mean, they do have the Sephiroth clones.
Yeah.
The early part with Sephiroth at the end of this one is the same guy. What's his name? From Tifa and Cloud's next door neighbor.
Yeah.
With the 49 tattoo.
Yeah.
Like that's the Sephiroth that you see.
Yeah.
At the end, and like that's what he can do. And in the original Final Fantasy VII, those Sephiroths are always Genova fights.
Yeah.
Like the one you fight in the cargo ship, going from Jun to Costa del Sol.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it? Jun into Costa del Sol. And a few times, even at the end of Disc 1, after Aerith dies, you fight that Sephiroth, but it's a Genova fight.
Yeah.
So maybe they could have those, be combined. Maybe you fight 10 Sephiroths at once or something.
So again, and then that's another question: are they? Because we know the real Sephiroth is at the Northern Crater, right?
Yeah.
So, are there two Sephiroth then? The Sephiroth that's from
whether the Sephiroth, Advent Children Sephiroth, One Winged Angel Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Because Sephiroth never has the black wing in the original Final Fantasy VII. That's actually that's a Kingdom Hearts introduction.
Right.
That was carried over into Advent Children and then other stuff.
Yeah.
But I believe he has it in Crisis Core, so you know. But that Sephiroth, future Sephiroth.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has a physical form.
Oh, he's just basically still used. So yeah. So when they were on the edge of creation, is still the 49 version of him,
I believe it's.
or was that the real Sephiroth?
Because the 49, he jumps off the roof.
Yeah, right. So then the one he was fighting.
Yeah,
during that whole section.
I believe that's the real Sephiroth.
Right. So that again. So the question is, are there two now?
Yeah, I guess there are. Although he might be the real Sephiroth, taking over, a strand of hair.
Right. Right.
Because any Genova cells he can, transmutate into himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess another question would be, what does the actual present-day Northern Crater Sephiroth have to say about that?
That's what I'm saying. Are they going to be working against each other, or
is Sephiroth going to join your party at some point?
Yeah, right. That's why.
Be like, hey, F this guy.
And that's why I was saying, like, the fact that this game brings up the idea, join me, right? And it's that moment of Cloud is not ready to join, and Sephiroth may or may not know this already. He was like, okay, he may know, like, all right, yeah, he's not ready to join, but I'm just gonna put it out to him, so the next time I bring it to him again, he's ready, because he's gonna go through some shit, right? So then, could it be that we will get a team up at some point? That would be a cool narrative, like, to bring that back, right? To bring that back, that was introduced in the first game. At the end of the first game, give me your energy, join me, right? Let's change destiny together.
It could be Cloud or Zack saying that to Sephiroth.
Right. Well, somebody will take up that, like, that offer and join Sephiroth. So that was one of the things I wanted to mention. And then another thing I wanted to ask, too, before I forget.
But one of those Sephiroths has got to get, like, splashed with acid or something, because it's going to be too hard to figure out which one to switch.
So, if you had to guess, who will be your new party in this game? Like, because how far are they gonna get to in the second installment? To, like, will you think Vincent is a character they want to hold off that long?
I could see them giving you Vincent early. I could see them putting you to Nibelheim sooner.
Right.
Although I could also, on the other hand, see them waiting for Vincent until after Aerith. Maybe not until after Aerith dies, because I would like for them to have scenes together.
Yeah, because you do get, because I was trying to remember. I was trying to remember if you get Vincent before she dies, and then I did see that.
You can get Vincent later, because he and Yuffie are both optional.
Yeah.
But if you get everyone as soon as you can, the last character you get is Cid.
Okay.
And I can see them from a gameplay perspective wanting to save Vincent, because Aerith is ranged, and when you lose her, you only have Barret.
Right.
And so Vincent could be like, the substitute Aerith in terms of gameplay. But they could also, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
To me, he's like the Wolverine of Final Fantasy. Is like that. I think they want to pull that trigger as fast as possible. I don't think they want to save him. Yeah. I mean, if anyone they save, I believe Cid would be the one they save. But, like, okay, so then that's the other question: could it be possible that they introduce all the characters in the next installment, or are they still gonna spread out the introduction?
It's possible. I mean, if they end part 2 in Wutai, then in the original you go to Wutai after Rocket Town.
Right.
Basically, after Rocket Town, you get the tiny Bronco.
Yeah.
And you need the tiny Bronco to get to Wutai.
Yeah.
And Wutai is optional, but you can do it at any time after you get the tiny Bronco or the airship. But if you go straight to Wutai from there, that can, since Cid is the last character you get in the original, if they maintain that kind of trajectory,
Like, I guess
then
Sid would show up, but you can't control him. I guess.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It
You
could be
could.
the same with Yuffie as well, if they decide to not
No, I
introduce
think
Yuffie
I think
until
issue.
Wu.
I think Yuffie is gonna be a early game, as
Mhm.
early as possible, and might not even be like I think they'll get rid of the optional thing. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think they'll
I
do.
believe so as well.
They won't do like, oh, you can miss Yuffie. I think because Yuffie, I think will play an important role. Wu Tai in general, I think is gonna play an important role. So Yuffie has to be there, and I think they're gonna pull the trigger on her super early in that game.
That's
Um,
funny because I was thinking that they would save her until like the Wu Tai arc really starts. Maybe have her like appear here and there, but not have her actually be a big part until the
well,
Wu Tai.
the thing about it, narratively, they would want her with the party earlier, so you could constantly be reminded that Wu Tai is a thing, and based on the fact that then you have a cell, she could even be part of that cell, or maybe know who's that a part of that cell or something. But interestingly enough, I was reading up on Before Crisis that had Turks going up against Avalanche, a cell of the
Yeah.
Avalanche, and it's revealed in that game that Rufus is the leader of that Avalanche cell.
Yeah, trying to not and it's like he's like the founder of Avalanche
Right.
basically
Yeah.
in an attempt to discredit his own dad
Yeah.
so that he can take over the company.
So then,
Um,
is that because I mean they already established in this game that it's a propaganda thing with their linking Avalanche to Wu-Tai.
yeah, to make Shinra look bad, but it could be Rufus, making his dad specifically look bad.
Yeah.
It's a thing where it's as canon as you want it to be until it's proven or disproven.
I mean, so far,
It's Schrodinger's canon. Like it's canon and not canon
well,
at once.
the thing is, so far, Nomura hasn't contradicted any of his, any of the extended stuff.
Which I appreciate very much.
He's brought elements like he isn't fully committed to everything that's happening, but he has so far has not contradicted anything that happened. Like the mere fact that he even changed the breeding scene with Aerith and Red to be, maybe he'll use a F or an S, a F or a G type soldier, which hint hint Genesis, right?
Yeah, and that's all stuff that they can do now. Like it's as canon as not as canon as we want it to be, as canon as Nomura and the team want it to be, because the timeline has been completely traced over. It's been completely changed. So whatever he wants to be canon is canon. Whatever he doesn't want to be canon,
and guess
throws
what?
it out.
I mean, granted, what I mentioned earlier, like I was hearing conflicted things about can they use Genesis or not. Hey, maybe Genesis becomes a huge part of one of the sagas.
Or maybe you go to like the town where Genesis was born, and there's a little a newspaper headline that says, "Oh, baby dies in utero. His name would have been Genesis," says his sad mother.
I mean,
they can do whatever they want.
I'm only saying that I'm surprised you're even mentioning other things, because I remember you were like so bummed out that Genesis showed up at the end of Dirge of Cerberus, and you wanted them to get more on Genesis. Like, this is your more, bro. Take it.
They can do whatever. Well, I was mad because there was no post Dirge of Cerberus content. Like, if they're gonna do Final Fantasy, if they're gonna bring Final Fantasy VII back, why? Like, you gotta finish what you start.
Yeah.
And Dirge of Cerberus ends with that weird cliffhanger of like, hey, Genesis is back, but like he's not necessarily a bad guy. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And then just nothing. There's nothing to date.
And it's just funny to look at it now. This is essentially post Dirge of Cerberus content, because it's literally in the timeline before Crisis, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
You know what? I'll do you one better. The Whispers are Genesis. Genesis is controlling the Whispers.
Interesting.
Because he's sealed away right now. He's just like in the live stream, just doing his thing, waiting for waiting for the time to come when he can save the world.
And forgive me of my remembrance of Crisis lore, but Genesis and Sephiroth are not on the same side, right?
They are rivals. Let's just say.
Yeah.
They're rivals, and it escalates.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah. So, he again, we could have. Holy shit!
Yeah, they're allies, but they're rivals. But as the game goes on, they
imagine this.
diverge.
Imagine this, yo. Imagine this. At some point, Zap meets Cloud and Sephiroth, and the three have to team up to take on Genesis.
It can happen, but then the twist is that Genesis is the one who they need to team up with, and it's Sephiroth tricking them again,
right?
Because he's a trickster. He's a trickster goddess,
right?
God, not goddess.
Yeah,
trickster god.
Well, that reminds me. I told my mom, "Yo, could you turn my computer on?" Because I was somewhere else and I need to access my computer. She had to turn it on, and I was like, "Yo, I don't see anything. What screen is it on?" Right? And she's like, "It's screen with a woman on it." I was like, "Woman? What the hell she's talking about?" What do you mean? You see a sword? Somebody's holding a sword? It's like, yeah, that's not a woman, Mom. It was Sephiroth holding the sword.
Hey, he's got beautiful hair. Yeah. There's a line in Crisis Core that says that he uses an entire bottle of conditioner every time he takes a shower. Right. That game is nuts. Final Fantasy VII is so stupid. I love it so much.
Yeah.
All of it, even the bad parts.
Yeah. So listen, we've been talking for almost 3 hours. I don't know. It could be a good place to wrap up. Yeah. So is there anything else? I guess we can talk about. I think we talk about the battle system and talk about the story, plot.
Yeah, I mean it's just a really good friggin' game, and I think a thing that it does really well is that it reminds us. Excuse me.
Bless.
Hope that's not a bad sign.
Uh-huh.
It reminds us that these games can be super serious and super dramatic and have this deep lore that we can dive into. But they can also be like, hey, let's have Cloud do like Madonna dances.
Yeah.
And like, let's give him pigtails.
Oh yeah.
And let's do pull-ups as Tifa. And let's like, use the right and left stick to pull down the levers.
Yeah.
And then you gotta push the lever up. And like, let's just do all this silly stuff.
Yeah.
And let's have let's bring back some of that joy that's missing in a lot of JRPG stuff, big budget JRPG stuff, I should say, and a lot of the compilation of FF7, like As the Children is dour.
Yes,
I like that movie, but it is so grim.
A lot of people even say that that's not the Cloud. His personality is not the Cloud that was represented in the original Final Fantasy VII.
That personality is a lot like the Cloud from like the first act of Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
Kind of before he's actualized.
Like it felt like a regression, but I think it was just more of like I think Tetsuya trying to do the growth thing in the movie, just in case you didn't see the game. Well, so he kind of like starts you from zero.
You know what it was? It was him doing the Cloud that the fans wanted, and Remake, and even before then, Crisis Core, although he didn't direct that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had anything to do with it.
Yeah, I don't know.
He probably designed some of the characters. But Remake is him going, you know what? I made a mistake. I shouldn't shape these characters based on what the fans want. The fans are gonna understand, and if they don't, fuck them. I'm going to shape these characters based on my artistic intent.
Yeah.
And based on what would be true to them.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the core of should Aerith live or die. Because everyone's going to have an opinion on it. Sid's going to be like, I don't know her. Aerith's going to be like, you got to do what's best for the planet.
Yeah.
And then Aerith's going to be like, I know what I gotta do, but I don't want to die. And Cloud's gonna be like, no, absolutely not in a million years. Which is why he's gonna be the one who's gonna have to put that sword right through her heart at the end of Final Fantasy VII Part 5, The Last Temptation of Aerith Part 2.
Okay.
Mark my words. Timestamp it.
I will. We're going with this bet, man. 4. I still say 4. If they don't do 3, I still say 4. but you're
7.
saying 7. Well,
7
I
parts.
mean, 7 parts, whatever. But I think they're really good. They're gonna be pushing it, so it's 4. But okay, so I want to ask you this, because the game really doesn't give a definitive answer, right? This guy basically had 3 ladies pining after him, right? I mean, Jesse, you could say, if you're going off based on what Wedge says, that she's really just playing the game. So you could go either way with that one. You could
That
say
doesn't mean she didn't want to bang him.
yeah, right. You could say yeah, she really dug him, or you could say, well, she's just using her acting charms to get what she really wants from him and to break him down. Because out of all the 3, I think she's the one who broke him down the fastest, not the best, but the quickest. She was the quickest to get to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe the others were more effective in terms of like taking him out of his shell, but it was more of a slower process. While she was able to do it quicker, and I think if she stuck with him a little longer, she would have, could have surpassed them.
I think that Cloud is surprised at how nice she is because he does not expect that, because most of the people he interacts with aren't nice to him.
Yeah.
And Tifa he takes for granted.
Yeah.
Because he knows that she's going to be nice to him. That's why Aerith as well, when it's just the 2 of them, he gives her a high five at the end.
Yeah. And then the thing with Aerith, though, she's working, like I said, like we mentioned, she knows more than the original Aerith. So I think she's a lot more effective in this game because at the time she sees him at the flower bed. As a matter of fact, I'm one. Would you say from the time she meets him in the town, she knows him? Or you think she knows him when...
I think between meeting him in town and him landing in her flower bed,
is
so
when,
to speak,
was when the planet, yeah.
That's like her being like, okay, there's something going on with this guy, because like those crazy ghosts were grabbing me, and then I met him.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he lands and she finds him, she's like, oh, okay, everything happens for a reason. Yeah. Here we go.
Because she was, I believe she really knew him. Like, she was fully aware of him and what she means to him. But right, like, at the moment she meets him in the flower bed again. Like, at that point, I think she kind of, whether she knew she falls in love with him and whatever, but I think she just knows that. And she was ahead of him, and I think she was working off that to really break him down. Now the question I wanted to ask you though,
and I like that you mentioned that, because all of that, her effort in this first part, and we'll see it continue in the second part, is what I believe will help him to become the more actualized Cloud from the end of the game sooner.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So then the question is, do you think this game established who he really wants? And if not, do you think they'll fully go with who he wants, or they'll still leave that up to the gamer to choose who he belongs to, so to speak, whether it's a Tifa guy or a Aerith guy? Because this game still, at this point, really sells the emotion between the two, right? Whereas, like, he is gung-ho to get to her. But
well, I mean, that's a huge part of the whole Last Temptation of Aerith, is like, if she had lived, he would have had to choose.
Right.
Like, however he feels in the original game, it's, that choice is taken away from him.
Right.
And so, whether or not Tifa is his gold or silver medal, not to be reductive about that.
Yeah.
She's the one who's left.
Yeah.
And, I could definitely see Last Temptation of Aerith being like, hey, now I get to be with you, Cloud, great. And he's either they'll, keep track of all your decisions, whatever, or he'll be like, hell yeah. And Tifa will be like, oh, I'm gonna duck out. Sorry, I gotta go someplace and, like, cry for, like, 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, where's Johnny?
Yeah. Because this game, essentially, what Remake did was they really front-loaded that a little bit more in this game, in the Midgar section, than the original did. Like, you really didn't get too much of his feelings towards Tifa and Aerith, I mean, you got a little bit when they were in the prison, which is totally gone in this one, where Aerith reminds Cloud of the date, and then Tifa is all jealous and shit, like, you have a date with her, blah 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 blah, whatever. But this one really kind of, I guess, front loaded. Okay, he has he has some feelings for Tifa, but it looks like he has feelings for Aerith as well, because he doesn't want to mention who Tifa is. When she mentions the flower, who did you give it to? He knew he gave it to Tifa, but he doesn't want to say.
I don't remember.
Yeah, right. Because he's trying to play coy a little bit. He's trying to play the field. Maybe I'm a Tifa guy. Maybe I'm an Aerith guy. Who knows? Maybe I want to see.
It's all building to Last Temptation of Aerith.
But then again, my thing is, are they? Because they kind of still left it up to the gamers in the original, where if you were super nice to Tifa, you get to bang her at the end with the under the high wind or whatever.
That's an optional event.
Yeah, because if you were more towards Aerith, you just have a conversation with Tifa under there. You don't really bang her. You just have like a nice friendship conversation. So,
I'm sure it was a nice banging too.
So I guess that's one of the things they may end up still doing with this one, is that not giving you a definitive answer one way or another. It's just leave it up to you. Like, if you're an Aerith guy, like, at some point you'll maybe, because you never banged her in the original, maybe you get to bang her in this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, because they did, like I said, she's a lot more aware of who he is in this game than she was in the original, so things might be speeding up a lot more. You know what I mean? Golden Saucer, we got Golden Saucer coming up.
Yeah, we'll see how that date plays out.
Yeah, because they basically did the same thing with this, where you can either have the consoling with Tifa, or you could have the dream whatever thing with Aerith, or if you said fuck you to both of them, you have it with Barrett. You have a conversation with Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe they'll just, which is, and that's another thing that's so cool about this game. There's so many hidden story beats that you would think would never exist in a Final Fantasy game, because most of the Final Fantasy games is just like, even though it's an RPG, it's pretty much a linear experience. There's not too many different choices, and this has so many different choices based on what you
that you don't even know you're making.
Right? You know what I mean? Like, you could, like, what color dress did you get? Like, did you get which I think is the best one, the black and purple corset for Cloud?
Oh, I didn't get I got the one with the tiara.
Yeah, I think because you did Madam M's main missions instead of Sam.
Yeah. Madam M.
Yeah.
Madam M, that's my
But the
shit.
thing is, the way how they say to get these things is still not 100% a factor, because they say to get Cloud's black and purple dress, you have to do Sam's mission. You got to get the poor man's massage, which is what I got the first time I played it. But guess what? In the second time I played it, I played the heads or tails with Sam, and I got the luxury massage, and I did the little discovery mission with Johnny, and I still end up getting Sam's main mission. So I think it just lean toward Sam if you do both, and you still get the. I think.
Well, I want to do Sam's mission now since I did Madam M's before.
Yeah, the black and purple dress that Cloud has, I think, was the best one. I did see other people got the silver one. It was like, oh, she looks like a damn country bumpkin. It was like, what? Get out of here.
You look Daisy Duke.
And then the other one is the pure black, which I think is fine too. The pure black dress. But nah, man, the black and purple is all out. It's designed. I think it was like even more put in a little bit of his Kingdom Hearts spin on it, because he has a heart in it and like a little twisty down at the bottom that looks like keys. So I think it was like a little Easter egg, heartless situation.
Okay.
And then the dress for the first time I played, I did the exotic, which gave me gave me Tifa in a sort of kimono-esque looking dress.
Oh, she gets 3 different dresses also?
Yeah, so if you the time
And
when
what
you
about Aerith? Does Aerith get different
yes,
dresses?
so the this is for Tifa, right? That moment where you do all the side missions and then you have a conversation with her about going on a date and what should she wear. If you choose mature, which is what I chose the second time around because that's the best dress, she gets the blue, sexy.
I
Right?
chose sporty with it's like a leopard print kind of
Yeah,
thing.
sporty.
And it's very much a sex dress.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa,
The name.
hello.
The thing is, the names don't match. Because the exotic I would think would have been the blue dress, right? Um, but the mature is the blue dress. The sporty gives you the Chung Li looking outfit.
Yeah, it was the Chun-Li look.
And then exotic gives you her. She looks like basically like a geisha / samurai because she has it's still short. But
What if you don't? Because I didn't do the missions on hard. Is it random?
no. What do you mean? For which one? The you did all the side missions in in number 3 in chapter 3.
I did my first playthrough, but the second playthrough on hard I skipped them.
So I think you're gonna get the blue dress by default.
Okay.
Right. So the blue dress is default if you don't do any. If we never got to make that decision.
And what about Aerith's
So
dresses?
Aerith is based on how many missions you did on chapter 8. How many side missions you did in chapter 8. If you did none, you get you get a completely different cutscene too. It's like she has this basic sort of short pink dress, and instead of rolling out the red carpet and having the photos and the fireworks, you have Johnny in front of her kicking a bunch of what do you call them, chickens and pigs like in front of her, and she's like, get out of here. And she's a lot more timid, like, I know the dress looks ugly, I'm sorry, Cloud. And then another dress which I never got, but I don't care anyway.
Okay, I want to do the second one then, because I did I got the red one.
Fanfare.
They rolled out the red carpet for her.
The second one you have to do at least 3. Do just 3. You gotta look it up because you have to get this precise number. So okay. I think 3 out of all the side quests you have to do 3, and if you do 3, you get the middle one. And I think you have to choose looks comfortable as it. No, I don't know if that's a part. No, it's just based on the side missions you do in chapter 8.
Well, I'll look it up before I do it then.
Yeah, and you get the.
That's where I'm at right now. I'm in chapter 8.
So I don't know exactly how Cloud or Johnny reacts to the middle dress. If it because the obviously they're saying the small ugly looking pink dress is the worst one based on the fact that she is embarrassed and the fact that Johnny is kicking all these animals in front of her like she's basing some country shit.
That's funny.
But the only thing though is for Cloud's dress, regardless of what dress it is, Aerith is still impressed. And I wasn't. Like I said, the black and purple is the best, and that's where I think she should have like, oh my god, you're pretty. The other one is like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's Final Fantasy VII in a nutshell. Like I really love this game. I think this is like it brought me back to the first time I played Metal Gear Solid, the first one, where it's like just a, pardon the pun, a solid game that just you can just like replay over and over. Like I can replay this over and over and just and this is why I'm most impressed, right? And granted, it's mainly for people who've played the original, but what's most impressive about this game is that yes, it's going to be multiple installments. This manages to be such a self-contained story with the whole Shinra thing, with the whole characters that were introduced, whether they live or die, but you had an arc to it, and it just felt so satisfying, and it just even amped me up for the other installments. But like this game to me is just a perfect, even if the others suck, even though I don't want it to, right? Even if they suck, this
and
right
even
here,
if they take years and years years and years and
I'll
years to make.
I'll still
Like
be
we've got this.
yeah,
We got it.
I'll be replaying this over and over and over and experiencing these characters again because like it was just so wonderful.
It's like if a show gets canceled after one season and that season ends on a cliffhanger, it doesn't mean you shouldn't watch that season.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, not too many shows I'll do that. You know what? I'll do that with Heroes, the first season. You can just watch the first season and watch it as however many time you want, and that'll be great. Maybe you could do Sarah. I think you could possibly do Sarah Connor Chronicles, even though the second season ends on a cliffhanger. But I think it's such a good show, it's worth watching. Firefly is another one. If they even if they didn't make the movie, I think the first season is a good enough.
Oh yeah.
But it's just added that it gets to finish it with that movie. It was pretty cool. But yeah, this game is right up along them that as well. It's just such a good game. The graphics looks good. The way how the cinematics are done, like you could clearly tell these guys just love action movies. Like it's just like the camera is constantly kinetic, right? It's just like the only time it slows down and really like is when the emotional beats of the story, when people are having an emotional moment. But for the most part, when it comes to like pure sick cinematic experience, this has it in spades. So I think it's firing on all cylinders all the way around. Yes, padding aside, because I did get frustrated with some of the padding and some of the side missions, which was just god awful and boring as fuck. Right? Why am I finding your cat? Go find your goddamn cat. Right?
Oh, leave Betty alone.
But
I like finding the music discs for her later, and she does the different dances.
Yeah. That those stuff aside, I think this game is just really a standout, and
but you need those little side quests because they help the world breathe, and it's like you get to meet like the little tiny people who
double-edged
would
sword,
otherwise be like NPCs who like have one line of dialogue. And
I mean, they could have had more interesting side quests. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
the side quests in Chapter 9, I believe, are really good. The side quests in Chapter 9, and as much as I am frustrated with the side quests in Chapter 14, I do believe like some of them amp up the finding chocobos aside, they do amp up like sort of the challenge levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice in Chapter 14 because it's just like collect all the side quests and then just like go in a direction and you'll complete them.
Yeah, and then and I really believe like they should have made the ghost yard graveyard section like have you go through the graveyard to get to the next level, but then like later on. Cause considering Marlene was the one like she had a flashback to Marlene telling her about the kids in the grave. Why not have like Marlene said, "Hey, there's a legend of kids being stuck in blah blah blah," and then you go on that mission and you do that, right? You do that whole section the way how it was done beautifully with the cool cutscenes and stuff like that, and have it where Aerith you get one of her because the apparently one of the boss you fight in that one, if you have steel, you get to steal one of Aerith's weapons.
I did.
So have it be one of the missions you go on to get that shit. Right?
It's not a great weapon. Yeah, but it's got a good ability. Good ability.
Yeah. I didn't use it. I only have 5 out of her 6 weapons.
That's the last one.
No,
the last all the weapons.
The last one you get. Last one you get at the Shinra building.
Oh, I mean, like it's the last one that you need to get.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky. I got them all. I didn't have steel equipped, but I scanned it, with assess, and then it was just like, oh, okay. Pause. Retry last battle. Switched up my materia. Stole it.
Did you get Barrett's weapon for paying 10,000 gil to?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I was like, highway robbery. That's all the information you give me. And then when he gave me, because I had like 13,000 gil, right? So I was like, maybe it'll make my mission easier. Let me give him 10,000. And the information he gave me, I was like, you bastard! What do you? I just spent 10,000 gil on your ass. And then when I got the gun, I was like, oh, okay, all right.
They're thinking. They know.
Yeah, you lucky. It was like you lucky you gave me that gun. I was about to.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So that should bring us to the end of this podcast. Where can people reach you, Zach?
You can find me on Twitter at my name, Zach Wojner. You can read my writing at screenrant.com. I've got some interviews, and I'm doing a lot of news during quarantine, because what else am I going to do?
All right.
And you can watch me stream games. Like I'm streaming Final Fantasy VII right now on hard mode on popculturegalaxy.twitch or whatever.
Twitch.tv/popculturegalaxy.
Yes.
um, right. For me, you can reach me at YouTube. You know, if you're watching it on YouTube, just hit that subscribe button. And then you can reach me on Instagram at instagram.com/popculturegalaxy. You can also reach me at Marky Tundra on Twitter and on Facebook at Pop Culture Galaxy as well. And don't forget to follow, because we're on Twitch right now. If you're watching this is on Twitch, just hit that follow, man. Hit that follow. We need those followers, baby. And guess the next time we'll be doing this, I'm not sure, but we gotta finish our James Bond retrospective. It's a good thing that it got delayed. You know.
Seriously.
so we got a little bit more time. We got a little bit more time. When it was supposed to come out, what, April or I think April.
Like last
I was
week,
like, holy shit, we're probably gonna have to double up on some episodes here. But then it got delayed. I was like, all right, good brief. So that will be continuing. We're gonna finish it. But we don't want to start it too soon and then it's ending. And we want to kind of time it to where the heat of James Bond is coming up and picking up, and then we can release those.
The heat of James Bond is in the penis.
That's right.
True story.
Hit the follow, hit the subscribe, all of that jazz. So until next time, folks, I want to say peace.
Indeed.